Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jamie. Tonight, we've got 12 expert speakers to present on the booming creator economy. We've got some talent agents, managers, we've got brand experts, we've got investors, analysts, authors, and more. It should be a really interesting evening, and thank you all for joining us. Let me tell you a little bit more about the format of tonight. So we'll have 12 speakers, like I say, 15 minutes each, approximately. Let me tell you a little bit about how this works. So if you have questions for each of them, then please post them into the chat panel or the Q&A tab. They'd love to hear your questions. In terms of speakers, so we've got Naomi Lennon from Lennon Management, we've got Lila Shroff from Atelier Ventures, we've got Hugo Amsellem, investor and author from On the Creators blog. I definitely recommend you check that out. We've got Tirell, my colleague Tirell from Classcamp. We've got Jamie Leverton and Enzo Ottens from Earner, which is a bookkeeping app for creators. We've got Barbour-Brown from Sharper Group, who's going to be talking to us as well about diversifying your income streams. Emily Ward from Shine Talent Group, and more. So it should be a great evening. Let me pass you quickly over to my colleague Tirell, who will tell you a little bit more about Classcamp.
Hi, everyone. As Jamie mentioned, we're Classcamp, and we wanted to tell you a little bit about what we believe and who we are before we get into the amazing speakers that are here with us tonight. So what we believe is your fans want to learn from you. They want to learn directly from you. They're starting to get a little tired of passively consuming content. They want to interact, they want to engage, they want to learn, they want to grow. They want to feel like they're a part of a community. After all, they're humans just like you. So tonight, you're going to learn a lot about how to build, how to scale, how to manage your superfan empire. But there's one key to that empire, and that's your fans. So with Classcamp, you can build cohort-based programs, and they're the best way to give your fans the experience that they want. And we believe they're the next big thing in the creator economy because they're live, they're limited, they're group-based experiences. They become unforgettable. So I'll be back to tell you a little bit more later on tonight. But while you're here, definitely check out classcamp.com. You can sign up to get early access to launch your own cohort-based program under your brand, front and center, and signing up during the webinar tonight will bump you to the top of the waiting list. So definitely check it out. I'll be back later tonight to tell you a little bit more, but now I will pass it back over to Jamie to get this thing started.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tirell. So let me quickly tell you a little bit about the running order for tonight while Hugo gets ready. So we will have first Hugo with a helicopter view of the creator economy, followed by Naomi, who's going to be speaking about whether you really need a manager. Then we'll have a panel session with Lila on the topic of communities. Then we will have a short break, hopefully, to gather a drink of water or something. Then Simon Barbour-Brown from Sharper will be speaking about diversifying your revenue streams. Then we'll have another panel session with Lila again, speaking to Carina Toledo from UK talent agency 16th, and Guilherme Coelho from Classcamp, CEO of Classcamp. We'll then have Alessandro Sigismondi, expert videographer, who will be speaking about fundamentals of videography for YouTubers, followed by Emily Ward from Shine Talent Group, speaking on how to create a personal brand. And finally, we'll have Enzo and Jamie from Earner speaking about bookkeeping need-to-knows for creators. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Hugo. Over to you, Hugo.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jamie. I don't know if you see only my screen or if you see my face, but anyway, I hope you hear my voice, so that's fine. I wanted to start with a little bit of context. Jamie kindly asked me to actually do like a helicopter view of the creator economy. The creator economy has been, buzzing a lot for the past, I would say, year, with the pandemic and everything. And I thought I'd just like, recontextualize this a little bit. And so what I want to talk about is actually like the post-permission world, because I think that's what's underlying the creator economy, and more importantly, in general, like all internet-based entrepreneurship. And so just to start, like, I really think that the world is separated in two categories. The people who think that you still need permission to do things in general, and people who understood that that time is 100% over. And why? It's just, that's going to sound familiar to a lot of people here, is because the internet changed the whole game and basically empowered like an entire generation, and hopefully more, to basically bypass the traditional gatekeepers, but this for the first time in history. I mean, if you think just, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just to access an audience like TV, you had to go through a cycle of hyper selection where just literally one person had the power to decide, okay, you can get access to the general public and you cannot. And so then internet happened, and then suddenly anyone can put anything online. Just curation is not done by this guy, that is alone generally, and it's done by the public, and the public votes with time or money and according to what they like and what they don't. And so this democracy essentially has seen a sort of like a new class of citizens emerge, and those are the creators. And the way that it happened is actually quite simple in a way, but also quite profound. Historically, if individual wanted to learn, build, or distribute literally anything, they needed to ask permission respectively from universities, banks, and media. And what happens now is that time is over, and it's magnificent. First, talking about the learning thing. If you want to learn, you can learn anything. It's never been so easy to learn anything. Knowledge is essentially becoming a commodity like water or electricity, and it's available for free for anyone who wants to grab it. You don't need a lifetime anymore to become an expert. I mean, I know about that. You can become an expert about the creator economy in a few years. And so if I can do it, anyone can do it in any topic. And so you can do that on any given subject. If you think about it, like Coursera, which is one of the biggest places to learn, 47% of the students are just, women, and 80% are just coming from the developing world. So there's like a tsunami of individual coming to the learning revolution. And that's one part of it. The second thing that I wanted to quickly talk about is the building thing. Like it's never been so cheap to act actually on that knowledge. It used to cost literally millions of dollars to produce an album, a big video, even an app or a startup, and now it just costs a MacBook. And so with the capital needs literally crumbling down, the actual need to beg for capital crumbles too. And so in a sense, internet sort of removes sort of like a feudal culture. And of course, it's a culture that is different than the Middle Ages feudal one. But until recently, there was still like almost like lords on one side with the capital and people with no capital. And now anyone can say, I'm a lord too, and actually fuck off. I'm just going to build anything without anyone's permission. And the latest one is, I would say, the distribution. It's never been so possible and easy to distribute things globally. And internet-based leverage, which are code and media, they both have zero marginal cost of production, which means that a line of code or a video cost the same whether they're played one time or 1 billion times. And that's, I mean, when you think about this is like one of the most, I would say, like powerful realization, right? Like this permissionless reality, the fact that we don't need to ask for permission is the most powerful thing our generation and the next can realize. And I think, and that's really personal, but I believe that when this realization meets ambition, we call it entrepreneurship. And so that's why I'm 100% aligned with that mission, which is to say that creators, for me, are the new empire builders. They are not just people who create content, but they are individuals who scales without permission. And they are essentially, to the individual, what startups are to the organization. They are the future of scalable entrepreneurship. And, it's happening everywhere. If you think about it, like artists get billions of listens without the labels, YouTubers build video empires without TV, podcasters without the radio, course creators build global classrooms without universities, writers without newspapers, streamers without sports channels, and so on and so forth. New examples are popping up as we speak. And it's a tsunami of like individuals basically destroying institutions from the industrial world. And so, like they used to say, winter is coming. I like to say creators are coming, and big time, because anyone can become a creator. Of course, that definitely doesn't mean that everyone will become successful creators, because, the lower the barriers, the higher the competition, but it means a creator can come from anywhere. And because they can come from anywhere, they actually do come from anywhere. And there are today 50 million creators and counting, and this number is growing quickly as fuck. And so as a result, there's a whole new economy that is growing around those creators. And that's the creator economy. That's what we're talking about. And that's what we're going to dive onto concretely in the next couple of hours. And so hundreds of companies are building tools and services with one goal in mind, arming the creator. And that's like a list of hundreds of companies building those tools. But if you think about it, like the creator economy is essentially the two superpower that almost any individual can use to bypass the gatekeepers. It's code and media. It's really it comes down to this. So like on one side you have media, so like media platforms, so you can put a video and boom, next thing you know, a billion people can watch it. It doesn't cost you a dime. And the other side, like all of those startups building tools and services, they are just helping you scale with code, which is essentially like having access to an army of robots on demand, right? Like people said, oh, like the robots revolution is going to come later, like they show you like dogs that look like robots. No, the robots are already there and they're available for the people who wants to actually use them. But the question then is like, how do you navigate all of these tools, right? Because that's a lot. And so for me, the point is that I want to structure, because I think this is really important to structure the different tools that you can use. And I'm going to actually quickly do an overview, is that the creator lifecycle is the way that I structure all of those tools. Because as a creator, and I think that the intro was about that, as a creator, your most valuable asset is your relationship with your audience. That's it. It's the raw material that you will just put into the thing, and you transform into energy, and that you will go forward, right? And obviously the creator audience relationship evolves, diversifies, and actually deepens with time. So that's why I divided like all the tools you can use into 4 steps: attention, trust, commerce, and ownership. And really quickly, like each step has its goal, has its way of monetization, has its metrics, has its tool. And so the point here is, I believe that as the CEO of your own media company, being a creator, your job is not to become the expert at everything. Your job is to learn enough about each step so you can set up 1, the right processes, 2, hire the right people, and 3, use the right tools. Your job is to scale yourself. You're doing it with media, now you have to do it with code. Your job is to free up as much time as possible so you can keep growing without burning out. And that's super, super important. And so really quickly, what I mean at the attention level, the goal is to grow and rent your audience to those big social media platforms, because like any relationship, the one between creator and audience actually starts with attention, right? It's like a funny thumbnail on the YouTube sidebar, a tweet that went viral, algorithmic recognition on TikTok, etc. The attention can come from everywhere, anywhere. And so for creators, it often comes from social platforms. And just like you meet new people at friends parties, social platforms are the world's largest party throwers, right? It's like they're just doing it all the time. And so your top of funnel growth as a creator is to create great content to generate attention and start as many relationships as possible with as many people through this platform. And the way you monetize it obviously is with ads, with brand deals, with affiliate, et cetera, et cetera. And you have a lot of tools to actually structure that layer at the attention level, which is, using Notion to structure your content calendar, your project management, using Airtable to structure your sales CRM, Canva to design templates, YouTube's analytics, and with TubeBuddy or vidIQ and Descript to record, edit, and master all of the audio and video things. And there's a lot of them. But then comes the trust layer, which means that essentially once the relationship with your fans or with your audience starts to deepen, it moves from this attention to the trust. And just like a friendship, trust happens once you start getting to know the people. And so to keep the metaphor going, if you talked to someone several times at parties, at some point you trust him or her, and that's the time where you want to own the relationship, and you do that by exchanging phone numbers, right? And so at the trust level, your goal is to move your audience from social media platforms to your own digital house to throw your own parties. you need to start collecting emails and phone numbers to create membership-based private community to segment your audience in database, etc. At that stage, part of your audience trusts you and feel like they belong, to something greater. And essentially you're monetizing that sense of belonging, selling nothing else than access to yourself, whether in a scalable way, tips, recurring donation, private community memberships, or non-scalable way, one-on-one cameo style videos, ask me anything, etc., etc. Again, a lot of tools, and I will give you an Airtable full of those tools, but you can gather live tips with Streamlabs, you can accept donation with Patreon, redirect your fans on social media bio with Flooz or with a Linktree that is going to talk later, create your private community with Circle, etc., etc. You have also email that you should gather and basically structure with ConvertKit that is also going to talk later, and so on and so on and so forth. Then once your audience trusts you, they can probably buy something from you. You all know that. And begins to, for me, the most exciting part of the creator lifecycle, which is commerce. And I'm not talking about like your audience buying something to discover through you. I'm talking about your audience buying your product. But, would say like, why would you work so hard to build super engaged audience from scratch and then still promote to other people's brands or services instead of your own? It's because commerce is hard, right? I mean, or should I say, it used to be hard because think about like the main product every creator started to sell, merch. If you think 5 years ago, it was super tricky to sell great merch as an indie creator. You need to have a merch guy that understood your design needs, could handle the production process, was like an e-commerce wizard, et cetera, et cetera. And now, 2021, you can use Spring and all of that complexity melts away from you. You have like a team, like a merch team as a service, which is an expert team that does and abstracts everything for you. And everything that happened to merch, which is this like productization of merch, is going to happen to every commerce verticals that you can think of. Classes, and that's what we're talking about classes actually right now with Classcamp. Classes as a team as a service, cloud kitchen restaurant team as a service, D2C brand team as a service, games team as a service. Everything will be put as a service so then you can own this commerce funnel yourself. Those platforms are not agencies. Classcamp is not an agency. They are a full stack commerce team as a service, and they don't treat you just like as a creator or an artist. They also treat you as a CEO, and they want to help you build your commerce empire. Again, I put some logos. I will send this to you. You can sell merchandise with Spring, D2C brand with Genflow, launch your class with Classcamp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There is a lot of different options. And lastly, and this is where I finish, and I think I have 50 seconds stop to finish, that's the ownership part. I'm not going to talk too much about that because that's like a whole other topic that we could go to. But essentially, once you have your audience attention, then they trust you, then you sell them things, then the most engaging way for your audience to be part of your journey is to actually share the financial upside, namely invest in you. You can do that with different things. Right now, a lot of people are talking about tokens and NFTs, and that's what we're talking about. There's a shitload of platforms right now that are like structurally building this ownership as a service for fans and creators, so you could really get to the next level of a relationship with them. That's it for me. You can reach me on Twitter at Hugo Amsellem or at hugo@armthecreators.com. I'm really looking forward to hear the next couple of hours, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Hugo. That was brilliant. I just want to quickly pass over to the question that we had from Laura Wyatt, which was, what would you say to people who are concerned that the market is already saturated?
It's a really good question. I think that niches are infinite. And I think that if you find the right niche, based on your individuality, which means like if you let yourself be weird, you will be weird in a unique way. And because like there is 4 billion people on the internet, you will find people that like that weirdness. And I give this example. If you go to a party of 100 people, if you talk to 100 people, you would click naturally on a weird way with 3 or 4 maximum, right? Internet enables you to find those 2 or 3, 4 people at parties at scale, right? So that's your mode. That's the way you actually find your audience. It's by becoming ununiquely weird, shining that weirdness as much as possible, and crushing the others by being really you.
Okay, Cool. Do we have any more questions from the audience for Hugo before we pass over to the next speaker? If so, please type them into the chat or the Q&A now. Now's your chance. I'll ask Hugo one more while we wait. So with your crystal ball, what would you predict are the niches that have the most room above to grow?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, think about it. Like, if you would bring me back from 5 years ago or 7 years ago and you teleport me here and you tell me like, look, ASMR is one of the biggest niche vertical that I would be like, no fucking way, man. So it's impossible. I really think that there is like some genre that are growing like at incredible speed, especially like the React genre. But ultimately, like, again, you know, like it's impossible to forecast that, and let the people be free and, you know, create those weird things, and let's see what sticks.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Hugo. That was brilliant. Really appreciate your time joining us. I'm going to pass over now to Naomi Lennon, the CEO of Lennon Management.
Hang on 1 second. Share my screen. And of course, now it won't let me share it. Damn it. I do not know why. Hang on 1 second. All right, if I'm not able to share my screen, I'm just going to talk, if I'm fine with that. All right. Yeah, I have no idea why. There's something about me using a double thing. Anyway, hello. My name's Naomi Lennon, and basically I'm here to talk about management, but I'm also here to talk about something deeper. So really, I decided to name this speech called Do You Really Need a Manager? And what is the role of an agent and a manager in people's lives? Because I think it's something that I get asked all the time by creators when they ask me, you know, what I do and how I work with creators. And I think there's a lot of confusion. So I want to just start actually by, you know, going through and explaining what it is, because I think as you grow, there's definitely going to be companies that are emailing you that, you know, I'm sure you're already getting emails from MCNs, from agencies, from managers that want to take control of your career. So I want to talk a bit about that. So I'll just start with a bit about what my background was. So I've been a manager since 2009. I started my firm, Lennon Management, back then, which actually there was no other management companies at all. I was in LA and I was managing comedians, and I had gone to the first VidCon, and it was the very early days of YouTube. And, you know, no one really thought that YouTube was ever going to go anywhere. I thought differently. And the only other companies that were on the scene that I want to talk to you about, and so that you understand, is companies called the MCNs. Now, an MCN is a multi-channel network. They've been around for about 10 years. They were actually started by Google themselves. And their real job was to conjugate channels so that they could sell against your media and try and get you higher prices. What was happening though back then is that they were really exploiting creators. They were taking a lot more fees from their brand deal. Creators and sort of like helping them, you know, keep owning what they've built. So, you know, the industry has definitely moved on since then. There are now a lot more agencies and a lot more management companies, and social media has obviously become the, you know, biggest thing. And I don't think there's any doubt anymore about whether social media stars are going to go anywhere. So I think, you know, one thing I've definitely learned is it's still very much an early business. And I think one thing I've noticed is that there's a lot of agencies and managers out there that are sort of jumping into this industry, but don't really know entirely what they're doing. And a lot of them are being started by people from the multi-channel network business. And so I've been working in this business for 10 years. I have helped creators, including RCL Beauty, the Raka Raka. I've worked with Logan Paul, Jesse and Mike. And I'm actually sort of here to sort of wonder, and I'm sure a lot of creators are feeling this way, and I would like to talk to creators about what their experience has been working with agencies and managers. Because I think a lot of them, what's happening right now is that they're working with them, they're being kept in the dark on what their deals are. They sort of don't really know what's happening with their careers. And I think this the speech that we just heard from Hugo was actually really important, because it's sort of letting you know how powerful your channels are and sort of businesses that you're able to build. You know, he sort of covered a lot that was going on. You know, you can build product lines, you can build, there's in-app shopping, you can do NFTs. You can even launch businesses on Uber Eats, which is something which Mr. Beast did really successfully. There's investments that you're able to make. But I think what's happening now is just what was being said, is that creators have all this power, but they don't really have the business knowledge. And that's what I think is really holding back the industry. So I've actually decided now, because there are so many creators, and I can't really help them all. You have to understand the difference between an agency and a manager. So an agency is a company that traditionally, well, I know it's different in Europe. There's no real difference between agencies and managers. But in America, there is. An agency is a company that has thousands of clients. And yeah, so they have thousands of clients, and they sort of represent talent across all areas. And so you would sign with them if you wanted to do something quite bigger, like, you know, package a movie or something like that. A manager typically should be someone that has a smaller roster, that is more focused, and they're supposed to be helping and guiding you to sort of where you want to go. Your agent sort of is going to push you to go to do any brand deal, whereas your manager should be helping them, saying, no, you know, that's not an area we want to get into. This is really our passion, etc. So that's what's going on. So I've actually decided now to create a program, which I think is funny, because, you know, this is about you creating programs, which I actually have launched with many of our clients, and I think it's a fantastic idea. Because, you know, creators do need to be their own business people at this point. So at the end of the day, I would like to help creators for many reasons. First of all, I think the business that it's coming to, you know, you are going to be approached by people that say that they're going to be able to do everything for you. But at the end of the day, it's a very much an incoming business. These agencies and managers, they're not really going out and getting you new things. It is basically a 90% incoming industry. And so you're having, so, you know, if you knew how to do the business yourself, you're already going to be cutting out 20 to 40% of commissions. Also, I just think that it's going to be healthier as an industry, because, you know, no one knows your audience and where you want to go and what your sort of dreams are more than yourself. So I would like to create a program where I just basically give you all of my knowledge, which I don't really think a lot of people have. There's not really many people that have been managing for as long as I have. And it really is just a matter of having the right contacts, being able to look at the opportunities that are coming to you, the emails from merch companies, and knowing, you know, which ones are good, which ones are not. Because I think a lot of time is being wasted. There are a lot of companies coming into this industry promising that they're able to do all this stuff. And I think that's where the confusion comes in. Yeah, so that's why I'm going to be launching this program. So I think that there's really 5 pillars that I find creators, if they want to know how to do it, that they really have to focus on. So it's, first of all, it's like figuring out what the industry, which is growing so quickly. So the program is going to include me talking about what the overview, who the players are, how to navigate the emails coming in, definitely with brand deals. Now, there is a way to pitch brand deals that I think is really being missing in our industry. And it's not really about just sending over your rates, which I think is what's happening. I think, you know, prior to being a manager, I worked in advertising, actually. And I was a media buyer. And so that really helped with doing these deals for a lot of my clients, because you know, you have to understand where the budgets are coming from, where is the flow of money? Because ultimately what's happening is when you're getting approached with these deals, a lot of the creators are definitely getting ripped off. The agencies and these influencer marketing companies, their job is to keep as much budget as possible. And so they're asking for your rate to see how low you can go. So there's just lots of little tricks and things that I think that if creators became savvy about, and I think it's starting to happen, then yeah, they're going to be a lot more successful, and they're going to be able to execute on all these things. I think that we're going to have a lot less lawsuits because there's been plenty, at least in Los Angeles. And yeah, I really do believe about empowering everyone to, you know, hone their business skills so that they can, you know, work by themselves if they want to. Of course, I'm not saying everyone does have to work by themselves. You know, there are some good agencies and some good managers out there, but I think ultimately it would make more sense if creators were more empowered, because it is your careers and it is your I don't know how long I've been.
No, you're bang on time, Naomi. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah.
I had a couple of questions that I noted for you.
Okay, great.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So question number one was, what percentage of business do you think goes through managers versus through creators directly? Ooh, I've lost you.
I'd say 90% of the deals are actually, we're already going to go to the creator, because the influencer marketing agencies, how they work today, they already have teams of people scouting online. So they've already found their list, and they're just emailing whatever email that is on the contact for any creator. So if, you know, and I know this, so essentially you're basically sending business yourself to these management companies. Which is no problem at all, because, you know, if they're really good and they sort of know how it works and they're able to get you more money, it makes perfect sense. But that's not always the case. And what works. So yeah, so.
Okay, and the other question I had for you was, at what stage do you think a creator needs management?
Well, I think a creator should start to think about management, if they're going that way, as soon as they decide that this is going to be their long-term career. As soon as they get serious about it and say, okay, I want to make my life out of this. Yes, that's when you need to start building your team, or at least honing your own knowledge to know how to grow the business. So I never put a number on it, because I've signed people as you know, as low as 5,000 subscribers. And those 5,000 subscribers now have 14 million. So it really depends.
And that's viable, is it? That they start off with 5,000 and.
Yes, it completely is, because it really is about, you know, how much drive they have. I mean, there's so many things that go into it. I mean, you know, I think in the early days, you are sort of figuring out what your brand is. And figuring out what your content is. And I've seen creators who start at 5,000 and then they get 14 millions, but they go through the cycle of different videos that they make. And also it's learning what the algorithm is. Once you figure out how to crack the algorithm, and trust me, I mean, every creator knows that you have to work with the algorithm, then yeah, you can start growing that fast.
Okay. I have one last question, and it's perhaps not the easiest one. You talked about high fees.
Yes.
What do you think is a fair share that managers should take?
I think 10 to 15%, but typically they're taking, you know, well, they're taking 20. I mean, listen, I'm not here to say people's fees are wrong. You know, I know the industry standard is now 20. That's where we've gotten to. The agents at least only take 10. But it's really hard to say. It's really hard to put a value on it at this point. So, yeah, I mean. But I mean, you know, if they're making 10% or 20% of something that they haven't added value to, then it really doesn't make any sense.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Naomi. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah. So now I'm going to pass over to Tirell, to my colleague Tirell, who wants to tell you a little bit more about Classcamp and the programs that Classcamp enables you to offer. So over to you, Tirell.
And I am back on stage. Two definitely extremely interesting topics from Naomi and Hugo there. And there's lots more to come. Jamie, can you see my screen? I just want to make sure.
I can see your screen, Tirell.
Okay, fantastic. So before we get to some really amazing panel session, and we actually have 2 more panel sessions to come tonight, lots more really powerful, I think, information that you're going to take away from tonight. We wanted to do our little Classcamp pitch to let you know about what we can do and how we can help you build your superfan empire. So we at Classcamp work with creators to launch cohort-based learning experiences. So if you're a creator and you have something to teach someone, literally it could be anything from adventure photography to graffiti to finance to self-help, anything that you're sharing with your fans that has some educational value or something that they're learning from you, a cohort-based program is one of the most ultimate experiences you can give your fans. Let's face it, if you think about the number of online courses that are out there right now, there's really 2 big issues with them, and 2 big issues that we've really dove into quite a bit. One is people don't finish them. There's a crazy stat that MIT, they did some research on on-demand courses, and what they found was only 5% of people actually finish on-demand courses. So if you think about that, all these people are buying these courses, most people aren't finishing them. They're probably feeling bad about not finishing the course. So that's bad for business. The second problem is they're super lonely. You sign up to do this course, you do it all by yourself. Maybe you have some fun learning photography or something else, but you have nobody to share it with. And that's where a cohort-based learning experience kind of breaks the mold. So a cohort-based learning experience is a group of people working at the same time, going through the same experiences, learning the similar thing, working on that same goal in a group. So it's a limited experience where people are interacting, they're engaging with each other, and they're having a really good time learning something in a group. And because they're doing it in a group, there's this huge motivation factor. You see 20 other people completed this art project on this day, if it's an art course. And you're like, okay, I got to do that too. Like I see all this amazing work that these other people are doing. I want to do that too. So that's the premise. What does Classcamp do? We give you all the tools you need to actually launch your own cohort-based course. So we set up the tech from the marketing site to the program platform itself. We help you with the program outline. So you might be thinking, I really know gardening, but I don't know how to teach people about gardening. We'll help you with that. We'll help you come up with the course outline, and we'll provide the customer support. And I know that can be a little bit cumbersome for a creator, but we'll do all that for you. All you have to do is do what you love to do. Teach people about that thing that you love to do. So whether it could be gardening, it could be art, it could be graffiti, literally whatever your topic is, or as Hugo mentioned earlier, your niche, whatever your niche is, bring that to a core-based course and share it with your fans, because I'm telling you, that's what people want. They want to be able to connect with others online. If you think about where people are already connecting, they're learning something potentially in an on-demand course or in their spare time. Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's music production, it could be anything. They're going to places like Reddit to engage with other people that are also learning those same things. They're going to places like Discord to connect with other people that are learning those same things. So people want this. They want to be able to connect and share their learnings and see how other people are taking a lesson and how they've reacted to that and what they've been able to produce after learning that new topic. So you bring all that stuff in one place with a cohort-based program, and you have something magical. You have something, like I said at the beginning, unforgettable, and it's something you're going to tell other people about. So as you're thinking about your brand empire, what you really need to do is have people tell other people about you as a creator. They're going to say, go check out his YouTube content, go check out her Twitter channel, go check out her Instagram page, because they had such a good time in your cohort-based learning experience. They're going to want to tell everybody about it. And that's how you continue to build your empire. So we're one piece of your potential empire, and we hope that we can really make make your dreams come true as a successful creator. I think that was most of what I wanted to have to share, but yes, Jamie.
Tirell, let's speak a little bit about the cyclical nature of it, the drops, the elements of.
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at with my last point. There was basically you can launch successive cohort-based programs, and what we've seen with people that have done their programs to date is they continue to get more and more popular. And I was kind of mentioning, like, it starts to kind of spread. Because someone's gone through your program, they've had an amazing experience, they've connected with other people, they've connected with you, the creator of the program, and then they tell their friends, they tell their friends, because that's what you do. You tell all your friends about things you get excited about, and it starts to spread. So you do one cohort-based program, you do another one 6 months from now, it may sell out 2 times faster. You might have 2 times more people in the cohort going through the program. It really catches fire, and that's what we've seen with the programs that have launched to date. And yeah, it definitely gets us super excited to see someone do their first program and then turn around and already say, like, hey, I want to do this again. And obviously we're all for it. We want to help people run as many cohorts as they possibly can. But the nice part is they're unique, they're special, and like I mentioned, they're limited. So you don't have to run these things constantly. It's like you do them a couple times throughout the year, maybe a few times throughout the year. You kind of build up a sales peak. It's something that you can share on your YouTube channel. You might be creating content for the cohort-based program. That's something that you can share other places. So it gives you something else to share on your other channels. I know that's something that is a constant battle. It's like, okay, now I've got to create new content to keep my YouTube channel, kind of the YouTube engine and the algorithm going. So that, yeah, I definitely get excited to think about these things continue to peak and grow. And then the last plug I'll do before we get on with the amazing speakers is definitely check out classcamp.com. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if you sign up during the webinar, you'll get bumped to the top of the waiting list. We can only launch so many cohort-based programs at a time. So if you want to launch yours, sign up, go to classcamp.com, and then we'll get in touch and hopefully launch yours as soon as possible. Great,
thanks, Tirell. I have a couple of questions from the audience.
Okay, so I get questions too, eh?
Charles Dowding asks, hi Charles, how do the cohorts communicate on Classcamp?
Yeah, so there's some really cool ways they can communicate, and it slightly depends on what the program itself is, but of course there's just like the standard kind of like area where people can chat. So there's like a chat room where people can talk about the program in general. They can sort of bond over the different activities within a program. So say one of the activities is, it could be an art project. So you have to do like painting, let's just say, keep it easy. People have the opportunity to comment on that activity. And then what I find most exciting about it is there's, I'm blanking on what we call it, but basically there's a space within the cohort and within the community where people can share their work. So they basically submit their art project. It's like an explore page. So at the end of week 1, maybe people have to submit a painting that they've done after they've learned throughout the week. People can go in and see the other paintings that people have submitted in the explore page and comment, share, like. So it really builds up like this excitement and interest, and people really want to be on the app and see what other people are doing. So there's lots of different places that people are engaging with each other, but it all kind of culminates on the explore page where people are actually sharing what they learned from the course. So that's another way that really helps with the completion rate. I mentioned the on-demand courses, it's quite low. It's 5% on average is what MIT found. With the cohort-based experience, people are sharing what they're actually doing. So they're motivated to be like, okay, now I actually have to do this thing that I learned and post about it and see what other people have done. And then it's just like kind of like a magical thing that happens.
Okay, and one more question from Melanie. What is the difference between this and Teachable and Kajabi?
Yeah, I think it's the cohort, like a teachable course. It's largely like an on-demand. And then Kajabi, I'm not too familiar with, but I think probably the big difference there is your brand is front and center. This is your cohort-based program. We just give you the tools to do it. So it's not like Classcamp is doing this program. It's you, the creator, is doing this program. So you're front and center.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, Tirell. We will return to this topic, but now I'd like to kick on with the next panel session. So I'm going to ask to come on stage Lila Shroff, who is an analyst at Atelier Ventures, and Marty Strenczewilk, who is the head of creator initiatives at One Team Partners, and Niel Robertson, who is the CEO of Influence.co. And they will be speaking on the topic of communities for creators.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie and Tirell, for sharing a bit more about Classcamp and for putting this all on. I'm thrilled to be chatting with Niel and Marty. Like Jamie just mentioned, Niel is CEO at Influence.co and Marty is the head of creator initiatives at One Team Partners. And we're going to be chatting specifically about how creators can leverage their communities to build, scale, and monetize their audiences. So the way this is going to work is we're going to spend 10 minutes doing some questions that we've already prepared, and then 5 minutes for your questions. So please use the Q&A. We'd love to answer the things you're most interested in. So before we get into the weeds of everything, I'd love to hear from both Marty and Niel what your thoughts are on why this is important, like why should creators be thinking about community building, and then what exactly that means. I think right now community can really have a lot of different meanings, and so I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
I'll jump in first, I guess. So my background is primarily in the esports side of creators, which I've been in for the last 10 years. And the simple answer is scale. I think that in order to build passionate followers of your brand and to really engage, you can only go so far. You're one individual, and the ability to scale comes in developing a community. And so whether you're a brand that's bigger than an individual creator, such as an esports team or a group of creators, or you're an individual creator yourself in your own individual brand, so someone like Ninja or XQC, the limits to what you can do are the human limit, right? You're only capable up to a certain amount of developing close relationships, of those close relationships then being monetized. And what a community does, it creates an exponential effect. You start to create super fans who go out there and build more fandom for you, who create new levels of engagement. That's who your moderators, start out as really as your first set of super fans who want to be more than just someone who is in the community. They want to be someone who leads the community. So you start to give your biggest fans the opportunity to better engage in your community as well.
I agree with Marty wholeheartedly. I also think one way to take a look at it too is there's a journey that people take when they encounter you as a creator, from never having heard of you before to starting to consume your content, all the way up to being an incredible super fan. And one of the things that's challenging is when you don't have a community, you really have to do that through very sort of like detailed and consistent content production. But communities give people a lot more of a kind of a natural gradient of getting closer and closer to sort of super fandom, partially because it's the energy and intimacy of other people's passion for you that help propel them along that graph. And so you're really getting the community not only to work to scale, but also to help accelerate people's affection for you, for lack of a better way to put it. It's a very, very powerful tool that's hard to do when you're only working in a broadcast mechanism to bring someone closer and closer to you. So I think the industry is just starting to get a sense of the power of community and how it is critical to creators' livelihoods. But it's a really fun topic.
Yeah, I like that. We hear a lot about the life cycle of the creator, but I haven't heard as much about the life cycle of the fans and how they get started and all the way through to a super fan. So if you could put us in the shoes of a creator that might be in the audience who has a decent sized following on YouTube, but hasn't necessarily tapped into community building yet, I'd love to explore how they should get started. So when is this an appropriate thing to be thinking about? Is this something you do day one, or do you want to have traction already? There's a zillion different platforms out there. I think we could all list like 20 different community platforms. So where do you choose to get started? How do you think about pricing? There's just so many details. Niel, if you want to get us started, and then Marty, you could follow up on any other thoughts.
Yeah, so I come at this from the perspective of someone who is building a product that is a community in and of itself. So for those that don't know Influence.co, we are the professional community for influencers, creators, YouTubers, podcasters, etc. Essentially like LinkedIn for the creator economy. We have about almost 300,000 people on the platform now. And our whole platform is a community, but we actually are very soon launching our own community product. So I'm sort of thinking deeply about community these days. In that process of thinking about a community product for creators, we spend a lot of time looking at all the different offerings that are out there. And I think, as Lila said, there's a lot of different pieces of technology. I would really encourage people to sort of start with what they're trying to accomplish with the community and work backwards to what type of community from a structural perspective will actually get them there. So just to provide some contrasting examples, you have something like Slack or Discord, very similar to a product, the product that we're launching. Those are very much chat-based communities, and they're very, very good at getting your fans to directly interact with each other, because there's no expectation in that community that the primary driver of content and conversation comes from the creator. They are almost more like a really good host at a party. You came to their apartment because they're your friend, but they're really kind of like smashing you around, introducing you to people. Maybe they're in the other room for a while, you don't see them. And I think there's a whole generation of people that have grown up on Discord that are very comfortable with that way of learning each other, learning how to interact with each other. Compare that to something that's like a Circle, right, which is a great product that has sometimes more structured interactions where the creator is putting a post up and they want people to sort of react to that specific post. Neither here nor there, just depends on what the goal is. For people that have courses and things like that, a Circle type of approach can be very, very effective because it can be much more of a guided experience inside of a community. And so I think what's wonderful is like there's an incredible amount of texture and options happening on the community space. But first, what do you want? Do you want your fans to get to know each other? Do you want them to bring more people in? Do you want to feel more intimacy? Do you want to learn from them? Do you want to create a paid membership community at some point in time? Do you want to sort of create separated experiences for people who are not in the community, who are in the community? There are lots of different reasons why you might want to start a community. You probably shouldn't want to do everything out of the gates. You might want to probably pick one or two things that are most important to you. If you're like using Patreon, for example, a community is absolutely a mechanism of creating access. That's very, very different than if you just create a Discord community and say anybody who is interested in my content, come here and chat to each other. So that was probably left with more questions than answers. Lila, I apologize, but it's definitely where I would start.
So I like a lot of what Niel said, but I also take it a little bit of a different angle, especially thinking about it from a perspective of not what I want as the creator, but what my audience wants. And so I think that the other way to do it too is to just listen to your audience. They'll ask for, hey, do we have a Discord server? Could I set one up? Sometimes mods will ask, right? Do we have a Reddit? What if we get a subreddit going for this community, right? Like those are things that sometimes just organically happen. So there isn't a right or wrong answer. And I like the way that Niel took it from one side, because there definitely is the side of like, I'm the creator, I need to drive what I want my path to be, and like making some of those decisions, like what I can handle and how much work I can do, because it is work, right? But then I'll look at it from the other side, especially having built large communities that were really driven a lot by the community itself. So in the esports side, a lot of times you're just providing the platform or location for the fans to get together, right? So saying, where can they come talk about the new player that's been traded or some big win or whatever, and directing them a little bit, right? Giving them a location to be. And sometimes it's like, can you provide them some perks in there, right? So I'll give Discord as a great example. Discord, as Niel said, is really great at being self-directed in a lot of ways. But sometimes what's nice is it can be 90% self-directed and only 10% of you having to put some time in it, and it adds exponential value. Whether it's you do a Q&A once a month, or you pop in to answer some questions off randomly, you do giveaways, you do those things that require like a very tiny percentage of the time people are interacting in Discord, but they're doing a lot more. Same thing in Reddit, in a subreddit. All those things kind of happen because people wanted a place to gather. So there's no size number, as you kind of asked, like, is there size or time or whatever? When I'm looking at it from the community perspective, I think they tell you. And you'll have a Twitch streamer that only averages 40 concurrent viewers who has a community that wants a place to gather. And one of my favorite kind of moments in Twitch was always when we didn't have Discord quite as big yet. Reddit was, sort of big, whatever, but people were actually hanging out in people's Twitch channels when they weren't live, right? Because they were so interested in a place to gather and continue to be part of that community, even when it wasn't live, that they would continue chatting in Twitch chat when they were not live, right? And so that extended into people having long periods of up and down time of where pre-streaming, post-streaming, they would be live, quote unquote, so fans could gather and talk even when there was no content. And then of course, Discord, Reddit, these other places taking some of that burden off of Twitch. But I think if you really listen to your community and take incremental steps, Niel's right on this biggest one. Don't try to do it all. You'll do a lot of it really shitty, to be quite blunt. If you do it all, pick some things you can do well, and don't be afraid to like dip your toe and see how it worked and then pull back, right? Like maybe you try Q&A 1 month and it's just too much for you and you don't do it again. That's okay, right? Like it isn't like you've signed away in blood that I will now do Q&A every single month from now until eternity.
Yeah, that's great. I like how you're both coming at this from sort of a different angle, but both ways that creators can take and adapt to their own needs. If you're listening, I'd also love for creators to be putting your questions about community building in the chat. A question that I think is important to be thinking about, regardless of which angle you're coming at this from, is moderation, especially if you're taking the more community-driven approach and you have a group of people that you're associated with sort of from a brand perspective. How do you put the right guardrails in place to make sure that there's freedom for everybody to be expressing themselves and enjoying themselves without potentially having things go awry?
I mean, this is a question that we could spend 4 hours on. I think it's tricky. I think some of it is aided by thinking through these things we're talking about now ahead of time. Like, what are the goals of the community? What are your fans that want out of it? What piece of software can help you manage and sort of administer that best? There's a huge amount of different control infrastructure and different platforms. So in some platforms, you have very little control infrastructure as an admin. On other platforms, you have much more control infrastructure. So I think it's something that's getting a lot more focus. I think what Marty suggested, I think is really smart, which is not only listen to your audience, but also listen for the people in your audience who seem like they have vested interest in a community forming, and get them really close to you as early as possible. They are probably going to be the thing that helps you keep some sense of control as things scale. I mean, just naturally as things scale, as you get into communities with tens of thousands of users, you just sort of like deal with a lot of different humans and personalities and perspectives, and that kind of humanity bubbles to the top regardless of what the context is. And some really strong community leaders that are constantly we call it show and tell in our platform. We've learned that if you get a bunch of people to do exactly what you want the rest of the community to do quite publicly, the rest of the community pretty much follows. When you have people doing bad acting things, the community just follows bad acting things. And so you've got to keep the balance of those two things very high. And it's very, very hard to do it yourself. So the earlier you can get your kind of squad around you is a multiplier effect of how many people you can have in the community. They're essentially seeing enough good acting content that they'll just copy it, because that's generally what communities do.
Yeah, right on. And I'll add that, like, I kind of lived it oddly. I don't consider myself a creator. It's not like the path I took, but because I owned an esports team, I by default became one, right? I was the face of the organization. And so people looked to me for what was going on. And what organically started to happen is these people who were invested, I think is the right word Niel used, they were really, really heavily invested. They engaged themselves, right? So it became very clear, like I can name to you right now 10 people. They're from various parts of the world. They're various ages, genders, you name it, who are people I could rely on if I were to set up a Discord right now or start streaming right now, who would hop in. First of all, the second I went live, they would want to have moderator status. First of all, they wouldn't ask for it. It's a big part of it, right? Like they'd feel like grateful that they've been giving it because they want to enhance the community themselves. And we've developed a rapport, right? We tweet back and forth to each other. We've been in Discord together to watch games, of our team and such. So we've developed that rapport, which helped when the community building was happening to go, aha, Haksu, you're going to be a moderator because I already know I trust you in just the interactions I've had, right? Like I have a bit of like, I'm going with my gut, to be quite honest, right? Never met him in real life, never even seen his face, right? Just an emoji picture on Twitter. But like you've developed certain like levels of trust there. I think one of the things that's maybe the most important is that you have to remember you decide what you want your community like rules to be, right? And so setting those rules tells your moderators kind of how to run the community. So let's say you're a Twitch streamer and you've set rules of like no language that could be considered harassment, like no homophobic racist language, etc. Right? Boom, you got a rule, right? Now we know that, and I'm using one that's actually a Twitch policy, but my point is that like it's a rule that your moderators now know what to follow, versus if you're Soda Poppin' or XQC, where it's a little bit more of an inviting toxic community, like those moderators moderate very differently than my moderators might. And that's because of who I am versus who Soda Poppin' is. And it's like as simple as that, and the people that are attracted to that. So I think if you, as Niel said, like build that rapport with those people, like right off the bat, you're going to get that as well. But also I just want to say, like, don't be afraid to like set some simple rules out, like how many Discord servers you pop in that has like the first 7 things, or like, here's the rules you promise to abide by, or we kick you out, right?
Yeah, those are all great strategies. And just to end on a fun note, I think we've all been in communities and digital spaces that feel sort of dead. And then we've also been in spaces that are flourishing and vibrant and alive. What are some quick best practices that creators can do to cultivate? And I think some of what you've been saying right now sort of feeds right into that, but any last closing notes?
I'll hop in first on this one because this is my favorite question. I'm in this community that's actually very small by number, but incredibly engaging because of the people in there and the way it's been set up. So it's a very small band that I'm a fan of. And what's really fascinating about it is if you look at a monthly basis, the artist doesn't do a lot, but he's predictable in what he does, right? You know that once a month he's going to do this thing. And then once a week, he's going to pop this in a chat. And then like there are these very specific things that predictability creates an engagement where people come back for it all the time. The second thing is there's an identity with the club, right? So like the club itself has a name. You start to identify yourself with it. There's even some merchandise with it that's not about the artist, but the artist's fan club that we almost gravitate more towards because it gives us a sense of identity being in that club. So what makes me engage more is these are my people, right? I'm part of a community. The whole point of this is community building, right? And so now I'm self-identifying with that community. So I think that from the predictability, but then also giving some identity to it. And the last thing is I think that if you can find a platform where your audience, because Niel said this earlier, right? There's a million choices for the platform, but where your type of audience feels the most comfortable, and listen to them so you can make them more comfortable. Like if certain things are difficult or challenging, you don't have enough channels set up, or there's too many channels. You're in a Discord that has like 72 channels and you don't even know where to start. Listen and don't be afraid to like iterate a little bit till you find that right setup that really gets your core fans engaged. And then it just goes, right? You don't have to make it go. It just kind of multiplies on itself.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think the concept of identity and sort of like tribal identity, not the creator identity, is really important. Something as simple as a catchy name for the group. I'm in this great community called the Passion Economy Pals, and the peppers are, you know, all people building creator economy companies, and just like people refer to PEP constantly as something they're proud to be a part of. I think there are some rituals that are really, really useful. The introductions channel has become kind of this standard ritual. And one of the things that's really important about the introductions channel is it gives people very lightweight ways to cross-pollinate in your community around things that are not necessarily only the thing. So I'd be like, if you're being at a party, at a birthday party, and you meet someone in a room, and like the only thing you have to talk about is how you know the person whose birthday it is, because you don't know anything else about that person. Communities can feel that way, but the introductions channel, it's like, I like cooking Italian food. I grew up in Scotland. Da, 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 da. You've now got this like very visual list of topics that people can kind of cross-pollinate and engage around. And so don't undervalue the ritual of having people introduce themselves for how it can strengthen a community. And the last thing I'll say is I'm very partial to the Slack and Discord format, the sort of like IRC channel format. Our product is very similar to that. And the reason that I like it is that, kind of Marty alluded to this, it lets the community build the structure that's their own. I feel like it's like community Minecraft. You go in there and you have like a general channel, an introductions channel, and you start off with a couple of things, and then you like encourage your community. Like, what other channels? We talk about crypto a lot here. Should we make a crypto channel? We talk about XYZ. And now the team is building their environment with you. And that is a hugely like norming function in a community. It's one of the reasons that I dislike things like Facebook groups, because you can't build anything different. And you know, so, but again, Facebook groups work really well for people that might be older, millennial, that they spend all their time on Facebook. So to each their own, but the structure of Slack Discord enables like a creation ritual, which is really valuable in creating strong community.
Great. So if I could just summarize it, I think the sort of most important things we've talked about are setting forth your goals and reverse engineering to figure out how to set up your community, being super flexible and open-minded, letting it be community-driven spaces, creating identity that can help unite everybody, and then also sort of maximizing opportunities to create serendipity and value for community members to interact. And yeah, I think that's all great tips. So thank you both, and I'll pass it back to Jamie.
Thank you, everyone. That was a really good panel. I really enjoyed it. I'm mindful of time, so I think, unless there are any questions from the audience that I can't see, I do have questions that I would love to ask, but I think let's move straight on to the next presentation, which is Barbour-Brown, who's going to be speaking about diversifying revenue streams. Thanks, guys.
How's it going? Thanks very much, Jamie. I actually thought we were going to be taking a break, so that's just as well I was here and paying attention. That's all right. Let me kind of get this sorted then in terms of sharing my screen. All right, all right.
Thanks, Si. Yeah, I'm trying to keep to it.
That's okay, man. No, that's all fine. You're very prompt, and I'm
Good
a little
job.
bit jealous of yours and Tyrell's t-shirts. I'm not entirely sure.
I'll set you one.
I'm just saying, man, like we're doing this for you, and we didn't get sent them, so
we'll mail one out to you, Si.
Thanks. That's what I was getting at. Absolutely there. No worries. Cool. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Yeah. It looks all good from my end.
There. All right. I'll get on with it then, I guess, if the time's an issue. So just very quickly, my name's Simon Barbour-Brown. I started the Sharper group in early 2017. I had worked at MCNs, but I'd also been a music manager since about 2007. So I think it put me in a very good position where I knew a lot of traditional management situations and I knew a lot of digital management situations. And that made it very important for me to kind of ensure that the guys, the musicians I work with, the creators I work with, the actors, the writers, the presenters that we work with here at Sharper, that made it very important for me to kind of accentuate the importance of multiple revenue streams, and also being able to sustain that longevity. It might sound very simple, and there are a lot of things I'll probably talk about in this that some of you watching might be like, that's very obvious, but I'm going to say it because I got like 10 minutes and I'm going to go over the basics and the top line stuff that some people might not have thought of. And I really kind of, like I say, emphasize to my clients of kind of how important this is, because it's very easy to just kind of blast through everything. And then weeks have gone past, months have gone past, years have gone past, and you might not feel that you've progressed as much as you should have. So I will crack on a little bit. So yeah, just touching on what I've just kind of covered a little bit. Yeah, the specific talk we'll cover long-term career management, and looking at kind of how I feel is the best way to kind of set up those 1 to 5 year plans in terms of kind of how you might organize things and how you might look at things and ensure that you're being as efficient as possible. Because the main thing, as well, as we all probably know, and some of the guys have touched on, is that in entertainment and media, it's not always the most stable and secure of jobs. I think we all can agree on that. So hopefully a lot of what I'm going to say here will help lay down a foundation for some of you watching, and again, let's say ignite some ideas you might not have thought of. So why are long-term goals important? Again, this might be a very obvious question, but you know, it's a question that needs to be asked, and people should ask themselves this question relatively often, I feel. So why long-term goals important? Stops you getting caught up in the day-to-day. As I mentioned, you know, we've all done it. I did when I first started Sharper. We were just doing brand deals upon brand deals, which was great, and I was very pleased about that. But we got a little way down the line, and I realized that a lot of the guys didn't have these long-term overarching career goals in place, and that is very important. So, but it's, you'll know it yourself with your own kind of lives, where you're trying to do a job and you'll be like, yeah, I'll get to that job tomorrow, and then a week's gone past, month's gone past, perhaps even longer. So setting those long-term goals kind of can make sure that you are optimizing the efficiency of your time and energy as you go along, making sure that everything you do on a daily, weekly basis is kind of contributing towards a greater target and a greater level, you know. And it's important to kind of look at the day coming up, looking at the day you've just done, the week coming up, the month coming up, and ensuring that you're everything that you're doing in some way, maybe not all the time, in some way is contributing towards that kind of larger goal. Again, it's just about kind of a bit of self-discipline. I'll touch on that again. I'll touch on that as well a little bit as we go along. How are we doing? Cool. Yeah, and ultimately this is aiming at security and stability for yourself, with like what I was touched on earlier, was like an unstable kind of, with an unstable, apologies if you can hear that, the window's open, people running past, not living in a house where people are all screaming at each other. But yeah, the main reason about long-term goals is that true security and stability for yourself within what is generally quite an unstable kind of area. Some of the guys have touched on it before. It's great to have teams and stuff, and it's great to have a manager, you know, sometimes, you know, but ultimately it's creating that kind of foundation of security and those multiple safety nets for yourself. You know, I don't think that you can ever have too many kind of safety nets with certain things, and a few things I'm going to touch on in the next kind of 5 to 10 minutes will hopefully help people kind of set those kind of things up. I've just touched on that last point. Yeah, this can be done yourself. You know, sometimes a manager and those things are important, but ultimately it's down to you and what you do when you get up in the morning, and what you want to get on with and what you want to get out of that day. Cool. Something that I always ask the new clients that we take on here at Sharper is, where do they see themselves in a year's time, 5 years time, 10 years time? It's fine if you don't know. It's fine if they don't know as well, you know, but I want to get them started to think about it. You know, not everyone wants to be on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, like creating content, you know, till they're 50 or 60. That's fine. Some people do, also fine. But it is about like some of those guys with greater career ambitions, that they want to do more. They have dreams. They want to kind of get from A to B, whether they're writers, presenters, actors, musicians, you know, what have you. And I think it's important to kind of be able to think about those things, and to, like I say, to remind yourself about those kind of targets every so often, and discuss them with other people and see how they're kind of getting there as well. You know, really never stop learning. But if you don't know, and it is quite a big question, and it's a bit overwhelming, then it's not a bad thing if you start with just a week or a month or a year and just be like, right, I want to be here at the end of the week. I want to have achieved this. I want to achieve this by the end of the month, and then by the year. I think that's really important, especially as a manager in day-to-day jobs, and like I say, this long-term overarching career kind of goal. And one of the ways, if you do have that kind of target, or a target for a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years, then it's about working backwards for me. It's about like, right, is there a logical journey from here to there? Sometimes it's not so clear. Sometimes you just kind of have to push yourself in some direction just so you're moving. But ultimately it's about working backwards and trying to figure out that kind of route of like who you might need to talk to, what kind of work you might need to do. An example of this is if you want to get into acting or presenting, or, you know, working in a certain kind of brand area. I've had clients and other kind of creators say this to me, and they're like, I want to work in fashion, I want to work in these kind of areas, and then I'll go onto their socials and there's nothing there to do with that subject, and I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of like an easy area. I'm aware on this call as well, this conference, that there are a lot of kind of creators out there with like 100K subscriber plus channels, and some of you are kind of well on your way to kind of getting things sorted. Some of this stuff might be a little bit basic, and I'm touching on the top line stuff because I've got like 10-15 minutes, but ultimately it's still the same kind of thing. If you've achieved kind of one level, you know, it's a bit like a kind of chess game where you want to kind of think a few moves ahead. So again, working backwards and having that kind of route in place or something in your mind is kind of very, very useful. And again, with this kind of working backwards dynamic and kind of where you see yourself at these kind of like timestamp periods, it's about that efficiency and about that focus that you're working on. So when you're setting those daily, weekly, monthly targets and you're trying to achieve them and you're trying to be efficient with your time and focus and energy, because, you know, it's tough at the best of times. And when you're in a lockdown, in a pandemic, you know, it can be pretty difficult to kind of keep that motivation and that inspiration up. And on that note, yeah, taking a step back every so often and just reevaluating kind of where you are. You will be surprised if you don't do that regularly. You might be surprised that you get like a few months in or a few years in, you're like, actually, I'm not at all where I wanted to be. But sometimes that's a good thing, and you might find you're actually in a better place. You might find you're in a place where you didn't expect, and actually, you know, you're really enjoying it. But it's important to take stock. Again, a lot of this might sound very simple and very obvious, but sometimes until someone says it, you don't think about doing it. Cool. Yeah, this is down to you as well. I'm touching it a little bit earlier. You have to be strict and disciplined with personal deadlines. Again, might sound very obvious. It's very tough when you're working from home to kind of do that. Some people are very good at it. Some people aren't so good at it. But again, it's important not to be overwhelmed. If you are struggling, then just try and get 1 or 2 things done a day. It doesn't have to be, you know, 10 things every day, you know, 100 things every week. Some weeks, for myself as well, I'm more productive than others. You know, sometimes sending an email is very tough and it's the heaviest thing to do. And sometimes, you know, I can send 500 or 600 emails a week and it's no big deal. Again, you might have had other people kind of mention this in terms of diaries and lists and calendars and scheduling and kind of making those kind of plans. You can look across the year, see what, you know, whether it's Valentine's Day or Christmases or birthdays or events or Mother's Day or Father's Day, and you can build content around that. It is important, I feel, sometimes to kind of use those mechanics and kind of plan things so that if you are struggling for inspiration or motivation, you can look at kind of things you might have had planned for that kind of month or planned for around that kind of time of the year and build out for it. It can be anything, you know, if you're working with media, it could be anything from film releases, music releases, festivals or events that are going on, and creating content around those kind of areas. But I think it's good to kind of have something written down and try and like tick off a few things. It's good for the mind to kind of see it in black and white and get through something like that. Schedules, yeah, and motivation, inspiration, yep, touched on that. Networking with other content creators in industry to continue learning. I think this is good as well in terms of organization. If you're on this call, then you're probably in a good place already and doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, the emphasis here is you can't stop learning. Just when you think you've got everything super slick and your lists are there and your schedule's there and you're being super efficient and conscious of everything you're doing, someone will come along, or you'll listen to someone and they'll kind of like, maybe they've been doing it for longer than you, and they'll say a few things that might just kind of like broaden your horizons and blow you away in terms of how they actually accomplish certain things. And again, I'm going to keep saying this. Maybe it sounds like I love taking breaks in terms of like reevaluating anything, but yeah, take a break, look after yourself. When you're organizing all this work and you're making all these schedules, it can be not great mentally if you've made a really big list and you're trying to tick it off and you're burning through it and you're like, this is great. When you get those things ticked off, you're like, great, this is excellent, I'm getting through this list. However, you know, it's some of my guys are guilty of this. I love them to bits, but there are a few guys on my roster who they just don't know when to take a break. They're really, you know, and I never discourage that kind of ambition and that motivation, but burnout is a real thing. And, you know, the main thing about this whole point, and probably why you got into this, is because you're in a great position where you're doing something you really enjoy, and you don't want to come to resent that. You want to kind of really harness that enthusiasm and, you know, love of what you're doing and kind of enjoy it on a day-to-day basis. And if you're going to be doing it for years and years, then yeah, it's important to be kind of sensitive to kind of that stuff. Why multiple revenue streams? Again, this might be a very obvious question in terms of like job and life security and stability and longevity. But the reason I wanted to talk about it, and I suggested it to Jamie and the guys, was that I do know other managers and other creators, they like to focus very strongly in one area, maybe one area online, maybe one or two areas online, offline. And it's not the way I personally would like to do things, but, you know, I understand like sometimes I might prioritize different things. But ultimately, it's about multiple safety nets and also increasing that possibility for successful opportunities. If you're working on 2 or 3 things or 4 or 5 things, you know, the thing that you think might not go so well might go really well. The thing that you thought was going to be amazing might not be so great, and it might not kind of develop as you imagine. So it's good to have a few things ticking over. But in saying that, please don't just call it a side hustle. Like that internet phrasing, side hustle, makes it sound like you're kind of half scamming people and you're kind of doing things on the sly and you're not really doing it seriously. And it's fine. It's okay to work really hard. Well, not even really hard, but it's okay to do things professionally and competently and have a few things going on. It doesn't have to be called a side hustle. It's not really very helpful in the scheme of things. It's just a personal bit I wanted to put in there. There is a risk of being a jack of all, master of none, as well as burnout. Burnout I won't go into so much because you know what that is. You know, if you're feeling tired and exhausted and not enjoying something, take a break. But the jack of all, master of none, in terms of me saying, like, you know, building out these multiple safety nets and different possibilities of success, it's not about leaping too soon into those areas. A great man once told me that, like, if you are enjoying something, you know, everyone wants to know what their plan is in life. And a great man once said to me, it's like, you know, the best thing that the only thing that he thinks really life gives you in terms of telling you what direction you should be going in is if you're enthusiastic about it, is if you love it. So if you're enthusiastic about a few things, if you do love a few things, you know, work in those areas, try it out, see what's going on. Don't just kind of create little, you know, different jobs or ways of making money that you're not really into and you don't, or maybe you're not so sure about. You know, educate yourself, enjoy it, learn about it. It's better to do a few things very well than a lot of things not so great, because everyone else will notice. If you think you're noticing, everyone else is noticing as well. And then passive income, money while you sleep. So I'll go into this a little bit more as well in a moment. But yeah, it's about making sure if you can lock in those other revenue streams, if it isn't revenue streams like merchandising or well, I'll get into it in a minute, but other areas that will tick over, you don't actually have to be there the whole time to keep pushing. Those are kind of key as well. And those are kind of the real areas you want to kind of push towards in terms of multiple revenue streams and as many of them as possible that can just tick over slowly while you're working on other things. It's a very important kind of area to think about. And passive income is a whole other conversation in terms of like finances and earnings and whatnot. So it's something worth looking into, but worth bearing in mind that you don't always have to be there 100% of the time to make sure it's running smoothly. And I've already said about enjoying it. Enjoy it, take breaks. I'm going to keep saying that over and over again because I think it's very, very important. And I don't think people talk about that enough. Cool. Online, offline. So this is kind of like the meat and potatoes, I guess, of kind of my management kind of style and how I feel, what I feel is important to a lot of creators. And again, some of you may be doing this already. Some of you may have 2 or 3 things online, maybe have like 2 or 3 things offline. And then, you know, that's great. You're in a great position. A lot of you might not. A lot of creators I know don't even think about anything like this. So here I am to kind of say the obvious and hopefully kind of get people thinking about it. So yeah, I've seen other managers and other creators talk about how they're focusing on one platform. I've seen them talk about how they're focusing on one area offline, and maybe it's a time issue, maybe it's a resources issue, but I don't know why it needs to be kind of limited. I think it's really important to cover multiple platforms and to secure audiences in other places. I have a lot of guys at Sharper who you know, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions, some of them on Facebook. And when we started kind of Sharper, there was a lot of Facebook deals going around and the money was great. And then at the end of 2018, early 2019, that's when the video reach on Facebook really took a nosedive. But in those 2 years, I'd asked those guys that were big on Facebook to start YouTube channels, to build up their Instagram. They did that. So when things did kind of start going a bit shaky with Facebook at the end of 2018, you know, their YouTube channels were up to 100K, or their Instagram kind of platforms were up to like 50K or 100K or more. So we had those safety nets, which was really great. And that was just one example of, I equated to, you know, you sell your apples in someone else's shop, and then the shop's suddenly like, we don't want to sell apples anymore. And you're kind of left there with a lot of apples. You know, these platforms, they're not built for just creators, and you have to be aware of that. I know a lot of the guys that work at the platforms, lovely people, but the platforms are not built for creators. You have to make sure you've got a few other things going on. Offline revenue generation, yeah, very different and very just as critical to establish. And I'll talk about that in a moment in terms of like what areas you can think of. You know, it's not always just about merch, but you have to be earning some money in the real world, let's call it, maybe not just online. And again, that can be very different if your management and your own kind of mindset is very, very digitally focused. So yeah, online, some of the guys have touched on this before. I think Hugo did really well in terms of like blasting this out and talking about a few kind of other things. But yeah, everything from like brand deals to advertising revenue, exclusive paid live content, and then you can do like the extra things for like fans and the audiences, such as Patreon, educational courses such as Classcamp, affiliate and commission-based kind of deals, online setups such as Shopify that you can kind of plug into some of your platforms, podcasts that you can have advertising on and can sponsor, personal messages. We've all seen like Cameo and all those other things, you know, not for everyone, but is I think something you can look at. Online kind of merch in terms of, again, we've spoken about NFTs a little bit on here, and there are a few other kind of like digitally based kind of merch kind of options that people can offer. Offline can be anything from like creating your own line of merch if you think your audience are kind of will kind of accept that and will be kind of, you know, receptive to it. That was what I was looking for, receptive. Not everyone's audience is built for merch. Books, board games, touring, doing perhaps what you do online, taking it into a live kind of tour arena, kind of TV work with like presenting, acting, radio presenting, music production, consulting, personal appearances. Again, I'd love to talk about all this online and offline stuff, like on way more, but I'm just kind of double checking that Jamie's not like kind of chasing me. No, I don't know if he's appeared just yet. I'll just wait for him to come on and shout at me if he does. But again, this online and offline kind of work can be really important in terms of, I could talk about it for ages. Oh, there's Jamie. Okay, that's kind of like my wrap up. I'll get there. I'm there. We've only got a couple more minutes, mate. But with these, you know, you could talk, you know, for hours about online and offline kind of routes of revenue and stuff. But these are some of the top line areas I think are really important. And I've said as well, like in doing this, you will create, you know, a very interesting and varied kind of way of working, which I think is very important. That'll keep you entertained. How much more have I got? Let me see. That's it. I'm on final points, Jamie. Okay. It's okay. So yeah, so there are no rules. There's not necessarily a wrong way to do all of this kind of stuff with like making money and multiple revenue streams and creating longevity. It changes all the time. Again, just bear that in mind. Don't worry that you're doing it wrong. We're all kind of making this up, as you know, to some degree. You'll learn more and more as you go along. So, you know, I've been doing this a while. Some of the other guys in this call have been doing this a while, but you know, we're all still learning and figuring stuff out and realizing that things we did last year aren't quite as, you know, as good as they could have been. You can't plan for everything. So if you're making these lists and schedules and diaries and things don't work out as you intend or you don't expect, don't worry about it. Like just keep on persevering and keep tweaking things as you go along. Reputations, be nice people. These do travel ahead of you. So when you are trying to network and you are trying to create longevity in the industry, you'll be, maybe you won't be, but I think you'll be surprised about how being professional, being polite, getting your work done on time, things that you probably think like, why am I watching this guy say this stuff? It's so obvious and so easy. The amount of people that don't do it will absolutely shock you. It will always shock you when you hear people, managers and creators and agencies and brands and clients just not being professional, not being very nice. And alternatively, you'll hear about the good guys in the industry as well. Keep learning. I've said that a million times. And then, yeah, finally, if you don't ask, you don't get, but do know how to ask correctly. There's a point, there is a line that, you know, you should put yourself out there. Don't be scared to ask for help. Don't be scared to ask for opportunities and kind of make sure that people know that you're open to them. But yeah, just make sure when you are asking and when you are kind of getting involved with people that you are doing it correctly and you are kind of keeping it in mind of just how you're phrasing things and what you're asking for. But yeah, I hope that was all good. I don't know how long. It feels like I was talking for 2 minutes. I was probably talking for about 20 minutes. But I hope that is all kind of useful. Let me take the sharing off here now. There we go.
That was great, Si.
Okay, was I talking at a million miles an hour? It felt like I was talking at a million miles an hour.
Your pacing was great.
Thank you.
And that was really interesting stuff. And it sounds like there are some stories behind some of the points that you were saying that I'll ask.
Oh my goodness, there are a million stories, but I've already spoken for ages. Don't worry about it.
For now, I'd like to end by thanking Sai and by moving on to our next panel, which is with Lila Shroff again from Atelier Ventures and with Guilherme Coelho from Classcamp, CEO, and Carina Toledo, who is the head of creator success at talent agency 16th. Over to you, Lila.
Great, thank you, Jamie. So the title of this panel is Aligning the Creator ABCs of Audience, Business Model, and Content. And I think the framing behind this is that, as Naomi and Hugo mentioned earlier on today, the concept of creator and entrepreneur sort of blending into one. And we have these frameworks and structured ways of thinking about business and business model in the startup world. How do we think about business model for creators? And so that's what I'd love to dive into today with Carina and Guy. Thank you both for joining me. If you both want to give a little introduction of yourselves and your work, then we can jump in.
Cool. I'll go first. Hi everyone. Yes, so as they said, I'm Carina. I am head of creative success at 16th Talent Management. Our company is focused on representing creators who are a good influence on their audience. So that's really our North Star. And obviously that can take many shapes and forms. And we offer both, representation for creators as well as, product lines, that kind of stuff. And I'd say we're home to a lot of like diverse, very inclusive talent. And yeah, basically people that look to inspire and do something a little bit bigger with their community, I would say.
Sounds great. I can continue. Yeah, my name is Guilherme, or Guy. That's actually how people normally call me. Let me just tell you, like in one sentence, what Classcamp is about. I think Tirell already did an awesome job and spoke for quite a while. I don't want to bore anyone in the audience. But yeah, Classcamp is essentially a company that offers technology and services to help creators launch online teaching businesses, right? And we believe a lot in this cohort-based format for a number of reasons. We think that people learn more that way. So another angle to what we do is we also think that online learning in general is changing to this interactive group experiences, becoming more social because people just learn more in those formats. And we think that creators are going to have a central role in that. So basically our task now is to find the teachers among the creators and to arm them with the tools to build awesome businesses that, in turn result in very good learning outcomes for whoever's on the other side, and also good, interesting, fun experiences learning. So we're really focused on, I think someone asked before when Tirell was speaking, we're really focused on what we call, or everybody calls, informal learning, right? So it's much more about learning about hobbies and passions, and not so much about, I don't know, how to get better at your job or something like that. Our format is really informal and fun. So yeah, that's it for my intro. Looking forward to the panel.
Awesome. So Carina, I feel like you have a great sort of bird's eye view of this landscape and the different ways creators are thinking about business models. And then you have sort of a zoomed in perspective on exactly what cohort-based courses look like and how that works. So maybe if we could start, Carina, would you be able to share if a creator is in a space where they've finding a segment of content they love creating, they have an audience, and they're starting to think more and more about business model, how do you advise them to think about that? Direct monetization versus third party, and multiple income streams, like we heard a little bit about before. Walk us through it.
Yeah, definitely. So, I would really point to first and foremost, audience and content being the first one. So if your view numbers are still all over the place, and if you still found that you haven't nailed that, just to hammer it home that those are the two most important things, and no business partner or agent can figure that out on your behalf. Like as the creator, you really have to find that for yourself and communicate with that audience. But if you feel that you already have that nailed down and you're growing, your numbers are good, you get good views. So I would start classifying the types of income streams that creators can tap into. First of all, think about where the money comes from. So it can come mostly from two places. It can come from your audience directly, or it can come from third parties. those third parties would be divided into then multiple groups. So for example, the social platforms themselves can be paying you. So like YouTube has AdSense, is one of the first ones to have, but like TikTok has a creator fund now, and we're seeing other platforms come in. Like Pinterest the other day announced a creator fund. So we're seeing like social platforms now actually pay creators. And I think that trend is here to stay now. In terms of third-party monetization, you still have then brands paying you to advertise their products in different ways within your content. So that can be from a straightforward sponsorship, brand deal, or for example, to go to an event, or to create content from their own channels, or by paying you commission when they use their affiliate links. All of those are ways that brands can pay you. And then considering your audience can also pay you. So they can be, you know, a subscription-based community of some kind, you know, merch. You can have digital products. So for example, if you're a photographer, many photographers then have a set of presets for Lightroom that they sell, or things like that. You can create a side business, a product line, or even, you know, as the mission of this event is, for example, you can create your own course and teach your audience something. That really isn't my expertise. So I suppose Guilherme can give a more zoomed in view on that, on the course side of things. But that's how I would split it.
Yeah, and real quick before we go into the course side of things, I'd love to hear the pros and cons between going directly to your audience versus working with a third party. How do you think about comparing them?
I would say that there's always more money on the brand side. However, especially now that influencer marketing has become more popular, I would say that more and more brands are doing this or seeing this as just a standard thing in their marketing plans, where before it used to be like, okay, maybe we will work with creators or not. And now it's like, yep, we're doing this year round and we have a budget for it. So, you know, realistically, the pot of money is bigger on that side, on the brand side. However, you are always at their mercy, I would say. Whereas if you're monetizing directly with your audience, you can basically do whatever you want, as long as you are serving the audience, as long as they like it, they're engaged. It's your own relationship with them that dictates.
Great, that makes a lot of sense. When you're not involving a third party, you get a little more creative license and flexibility, but you have to do maybe more of the grunt work to make sure it's all working out. Switching gears, I think that with thinking about income streams, you can align them in a couple of different ways. You can tap into your individual talent, niche, and identity that you've built out, as well as where are you in your creator life cycle. You know, when you're just starting out, merch might not be a great thing to be working on, versus when you're already have a huge audience, you can start to get more creative. Guy, if you could maybe tell us a bit about your thoughts on this, and then from there go into cohort-based courses and where those align with audience size and talent.
Sure. Yeah, I think the way I personally look at it, at least, you know, it's really important to figure out which income streams or which business models, as probably some people would refer to it, apply to you and have the most potential and have a fit, so to speak. So the first level of fitness would be between the income stream and your individual talents, right? So I think there are generic talents that every creator needs to have. I think everybody, you know, needs to be charismatic and outgoing, able to speak to a camera. Those are like the generals, but what is particular to you? What are you particularly good at? And in our case, of course, we are particularly looking for those that are good teachers, those that enjoy sort of getting a message across, you know, effecting some change in the audience. That's really the first dimension. The second dimension, like you were saying, Lila, is the size of the audience. And I think there are many ways to look at this. Carina already mentioned a few. I think one way that we personally look at it is, or that I personally look at it is, you know, if you have a small audience, ideally, if you're doing it well, you know, if you are a creator like on the right path, you'll have a small number of very engaged fans. That's what is sort of like the early signs that you'll eventually become a large creator. And if you just think about it that way, so if you have a small amount of people that really, really like what you do, then what's better, to sell them a cheap product or an expensive product? So what I'm trying to get at is, as you progress through the growth of your audience, one strategy is to think, when you're a bit smaller, you probably should sell expensive products to a small number of people. And as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, it's probably more profitable to sell cheap products to millions of people. I mean, products, used very, in a very broad sense here. So, for example, a pure endorsement deal, it's, I mean, depending on the product you're selling, but it's generally like a cheap product for you as a creator, right? You're going to get like a tiny amount of revenue, and you hope that hundreds of thousands of people, hopefully, are going to buy something with your link, and that will amount to something. But if you're someone, I'm going to say, perhaps around the 50,000 subscriber mark at YouTube, and your audience really, really likes what you do. And in our case, I can speak for, for creators that are teaching something, then it's really a better option to sort of offer more value, more engagement, more of your time for a higher price, than to try to create something that you can sell a million times. Yeah, I think I don't want to, go too much deeper, but if there's any aspect you'd like me to explore, I'm happy to.
I'd love your thoughts, Carina, on that of, what should you be thinking about when you're a smaller audience versus a larger audience in terms of pricing and the products you're offering?
Yeah, I think it all has to come from the level of interactions that you have with the audience, and the quality of those interactions, and what you're seeing, that they give to you, So sometimes you'll see influencers, for example, on Instagram, in the comment section will tell you everything you need to know, and you can tell that the comment section is very surface level. There's not a lot of depth there. And so most likely, even if they are small, or the quality of conversation is not very significant. So I do wonder if those communities would actually be spending money, or if they're just there for inspiration and they want to consume that content for free for inspiration. So I wouldn't say that is a set formula that would work for everyone, because then someone can take the advice and say it doesn't work. But that is something I would, for a small creator starting out, is what I would say is encourage quality conversations with your audience, and start also seeing your power from taking users from one platform into the next. So do people click on your links? When you direct them from your Instagram to your YouTube, or from your YouTube to your blog, or, things like that, do they go? How does that flow of followers between things that are just free for them to engage with, how does that work? And then I think from there, you can start drawing some assumptions to see where things would go. And also, if they DM you with questions, with requests, with things like that, that's then you can start seeing like what their needs are, and then how can you further meet them with a product or some type of monetization. But then sometimes, if you're doing content, for example, skincare, they may be just asking you, oh, what are the best product recommendations? And so in that case, they don't want you to sell them something. Then a brand deal would be more suited.
Yeah, so it sounds like in addition to audience size, it's thinking about authenticity of that connection, like how many of those fans are genuinely organically engaged, and using that to inform how you structure things. I see there's a question from the audience. It says, if your content on Instagram or YouTube is teaching things for free, how do you get people to flip over and start actually paying for that when you're already offering things for free? I think this is a great question. If you want to share
Very
with
happy
us
to
how
talk
you're thinking
about
about
that. Yeah, of course,
Fabulous.
This is something we spend a lot of time thinking about. And I think, thanks a lot, Laura, for the question. I think the main key is differentiation. So it needs to be really clear what people are paying for and why is it more than what they get for free. So it's a balance, right? How much do you offer for free, and how is your paid experience? So you're able to really, create this perceived added value. And the fact that courses on Classcamp are interactive in the sense that they include live elements. There's always, even if there are no live classes, there's always some sort of feedback loop from the creator, maybe reaction videos to the work you've done. And of course, live classes always help the exclusivity aspect, like it's this cohort, it's going to start next month. Who knows when the next one is going to start? All those things, they add to the differentiation between free and premium. And yeah, like I said, I mean, the reason we're doing this format now, I mean, I think Laura in particular probably knows that we've started with a different format, in the beginning of our company, is because we are also learning and we're also looking at what's working and what's good for creators essentially, and at the same time, a good experience for the end consumers.
Just building on that, I would say that, if you're already teaching something for free on your YouTube or on your channel, there's nothing wrong with that. And that is sort of like how you attract people to you, that they see you as a source of knowledge and attribute credibility to what you have to say. And, just because you're giving a little bit of content for free or teaching them something for free doesn't mean that then further down the line you'd be able to create something with like momentum. A great example of this is, for example, Ali Abdul, who's a creator on YouTube, and he has several courses on multiple platforms that he uses, and he does acknowledge it himself, that says a lot of this content you could already find for free in my YouTube videos, but it's probably distributed throughout all the videos. And so if you want a structure to actually learn and apply yourself, then you do the course and then you have to pay for that. So I think it's how can you land on finding a format that works.
Yeah, I think on one end, it's sort of teasing people into it by showing, like, if you want more of this in a more structured environment with community that's engaged, join me. And then on the other end, using the community, like we were talking about before, to help push that message back into the world. One last question from Charles on what does Classcamp offer in terms of online courses that maybe differentiates it or sets it apart from other course providers? And I think, again, Guy, if you'd like to take this one to close out the panel, that'd be great.
Of course, happy to. I think Charles didn't mention what kind of courses are already being offered. I definitely think that, on-demand courses at a cheaper price can definitely coexist with a premium experience on top of that, which is the cohort interactive community-driven course. So maybe one answer to the question is you don't need to replace your on-demand courses. You can just sort of like add another revenue stream on top, one that is, higher price, higher value, higher engagement. That might make sense for some creators. I think two other scenarios I can think of is maybe you're offering already cohort-based courses, or at least, courses that start on a specific day and involve live elements and there's some degree of interaction, but you're doing that by essentially using a patchwork of different tools. Maybe you have a WhatsApp group going and, you do some Zoom calls every now and then, then the difference of Classcamp is really just to streamline all of that. And with all the benefits it has for you as a creator, it will be a much better use of your time, and you will end up providing your participants with more value, right? Because we make it really easy for you to interact quickly. The schedule is really clear. Everybody convenes in one place, so the level of engagement is much higher. Yeah, and I think if you are doing on demand and are looking to, and are perhaps having the feeling that not enough people are buying that, but that they really, really like it, that's probably a sign that you have a small number of very engaged fans, and they probably would be happy to learn from you in a more structured and more intensive manner, more interactive. And in that case, perhaps replacing, the cheap online course with a more expensive cohort interactive experience is even the right solution.
Fabulous. Well, thank you both for sharing your thoughts with us today. It's been great hearing from you. And I think with that, Jamie, take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lila. Thank you, Carina. Thank you, Guy. Okay, let's move on now to the next presentation, which is Alessandro Sigismondi, who is a professional videographer, and he's here to talk about videographer fundamentals for YouTubers. So, Alessandro.
Here I am.
Hi.
Ciao. We're speaking Italian now? Maybe not. Okay, so nice to be here, and I'm honored to be, part of this amazing group of people. And thanks for the invite. And I think I have to start because we don't have much time, so I have to hurry up.
Yeah. Let's get to it.
Good. So I will share the screen, so it's much much better look at my face. And yeah, here it is. Yes, much better in a picture. No, this is the power of doing photos. I look much better there. So let's go to the point. So for just to introduce shortly myself, I'm a content creator. I'm doing both videos and photos. I started mostly in the wellness and fitness industry. And then now I am specialized in working still with all these people in both industries, and as well I collaborate with a lot of sustainable brands. And this is just, you know, I just let a video play, so maybe you know, just get an idea what I'm doing. Yeah, and what I'm talking, I hope that, you know, you both hear my voice and you hear the sounds. And this is just taken from some videos that I shared on YouTube. It's just a mix of them. And as you see, there's a lot of yoga and dance and stuff like that. Yeah, a lot of drone footage and other kind of footages as well. So finish was very quick. So first of all, I want to start with some questions. You don't have to answer me now, but I mean, it's something that I think if someone wants to create content for YouTube or any other platform, I have to ask themselves these questions nowadays, because I think they're really important. The first question is this one. I mean, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? I think for me, I always try to repeat to myself this question, because I think when you are a content creator, whether you're doing it full time or whether you're doing like, you know, like as a hobby, but even if you're doing it full time, I mean, it can be only driven to make a lot of money. You know, this maybe can happen if you're really good in what you're doing, but I mean, it has to be something that starts from passion, honestly. And so the second question is, why do you want to be a YouTuber? And again, you say the answer, making money is not allowed. To me, I think there are to be like other motivation that want to start a YouTube channel or want to make your YouTube channel bigger. And the third question is, what do you want to do on YouTube? I mean, it must be a very, you know, a question to say, oh, why is asking this? Is so something has to be taken for granted. But what I'm sharing this is because, for example, talk about myself, I'm not the typical YouTuber. You know, the typical YouTuber, the YouTuber might have in mind is someone who do a lot of, you know, puts himself a lot in front of the camera, who do a lot of reviews of products. You know, I have many other friends or people I follow, you know, who are photographers, videographers. You know, I do reviews all the time of the camera gear, stuff like that. And, you know, basically they are the main protagonist of their channel. This is not me, I would say. I also do that, but I mostly share also video I'm doing with other people. You know, as I'm saying, what do you want to do on YouTube? So it could be entertaining, and I mean, it's also, you know, something, as I say here, I jump in the video, just say an example, but this is not what I do in all the videos. Here it is, you know, I'm coming in, hopefully. And I say, this is not, this again, you know, sometimes this is another thing, a part of entertaining, something you could do is teaching. And of course, you know, I've done some videos where I, let's say, when I'm teaching photography or videography, but many videos that I shared are videos when I'm basically, as I'm saying, I'm so much into wellness, fitness, and yoga. I shared a lot of the yoga classes and stuff like that when I filmed other people, actually, you know. And just try to jump it a little bit farther. and I go on like that. And of course, you can also do like something that I done. For example, the video that I shared that has been more successful with almost like 9 million views is just this video when there is a this yoga practitioner and teacher, but basically it's just doing her yoga sequence. That is not even that, you know, easy to you know, to do it at home. You know, it's not something, you know, she's not even teaching. She just, let's say, inspiring. And just to give an example, for this video, it's been so successful that I did like a kind of a challenge online on YouTube when I asked my subscribers to replicate what she's doing in the video, and they did it. You know, I had like 100 entries or something like that. So this is part of what I try to do in this time, is like creating a community. And I think this is very important. Probably other people talk about this point. So I won't come back to it, but I think that creating a community is really important. And what I'm saying is that I was talking about inspiring, entertaining, and teaching and creating community, but maybe, you know, it's all of that you have to do on your YouTube channel. But I think that behind all of that, it's very important. You know, still, you know, YouTube is made of, you know, it's the video content is what is needed. So what I notice is that, of course, the most important thing are the stories you're telling, but there's also some grammar to learn, and there's also like something you should know. And I think it would be, you know, make everything better. You know, also the interesting content you might share, if it's shared in a certain way, probably would get noticed maybe better. So what I'm saying is that you might say, okay, so now is recommended me a new camera or something like that. Not really, because what I think is not so much about the tools you use, but it's more about the mindset you have. Let's give this example. This video has been shot remotely with a phone. So basically, I did this video. It was her phone, and I was controlling with an app her phone with, you know, remotely. She was in Oslo, I was in Italy, and we did this video together. And then I did it together with, you know, putting a nice editing, music, and whatever. And this video has been quite successful with 500,000 views so far. It's quite new. And this is just something to say, you know, there's nothing really special in the videography. It's done with a phone, but there are all the elements, I think, of what is important to know when shooting videos on for YouTube or for any other platform, actually. That's why I'm saying is we're talking about making better online videos. We're not talking about like doing a movie, but we're talking about to do something that is entertaining and in a way viewable online. So the rules, I think, are mainly those ones. That is, first of all, you have to tell a story. If there's nothing to tell, it's not really interesting. Second thing is to keep it simple, especially if you're not this experienced videographer, if you don't have all these backgrounds like operating cameras or whatever. I think unless you're trying something really crazy, it just start from something simple. Just start with, you know, before using, you know, gimbals and like doing crazy camera movements, just compose your shot like in a nice way, putting your camera on a tripod or your phone on a tripod, you know, do it straight and, you know, with nice lines. Another thing that is really important is good sound, because of course, you know, sound is always depending on the videos you're sharing on your YouTube channel, but sound is a big part of it always. Sometimes is more than half of it. Another thing that is very important, be authentic, because I mean, just trying, it's fine modeling someone you like, but I mean, you have to find your own voice. And of course, This is 5. It's not it's not 4 actually, but it's promoting your content, of course. But this, I think, other speakers will talk much more about that. So as you said in the video that I briefly was showing before, shot with the phone, it was edited like in a way that it was not really looking like something shot with a phone. Why? Because I applied the basic like filming grammar. So I was like mixing in the edit the different kind of shots. And this, I think, is something that is good to know when you're creating content. I mean, many people will know it already, but I'm saying, you know that these are the parts of your sentences. I mean, if we want to call them sentences, what you create in your video. So there are the long shots, it's very easy and explainable here. So a long shot, it tells also a little bit more the story of the ambience of the setting where you are. The full shot is like the full body figure. Medium shot is from knee up, and the close up, it's mostly closer to the face and up to the elbows. And then there's the extreme close up, of course, but it's even closer. But these are the main shots. And when you put them together, and playing with them, helps you to tell a story. And what I was saying is the first point, telling a story. So of course you tell a different story using a close-up or using a long shot. A long shot maybe will establish the story, will tell what's around you. A close-up will give a more intimate look. And most probably in a video we'll have to use both. And this will make it more interesting. And then there's something that basically this is not even, this is really like the core of videography. And is what I worked on set also as a DOP, who is the director of photography. And the director of photography basically is, the one who's taking care of lights and lenses and camera are used and all the technical stuff. And basically, it's interesting that it's called director of photography, even in cinema, because basically the rules are the same in photography or in cinema, basically. And the composition and understanding light, and then the third thing is improving with editing. I mean, they can be applied both to photography and to videography, actually. And I will start with composition, because I think it's really important. And again, I come into the other point that I was saying before, and it is keep it simple. When you compose your shot, let's give you this example. For example, I say, I to tell the story of the postures this yoga teacher is doing, there's just a window, bring me some natural light and nothing else more. We want to see the body, want to see the shape. We don't want to get distracted. Keep it simple. And another thing that is sometimes is interesting is like that, playing with negative space. So this is this big establishment shot. That's, I think it's quite interesting. Even here, negative space, and also playing with the shadow, and make the shots interesting. With perspective. I really love perspective. Like here, I love framing the subjects. Even when you're doing, even now, you see like behind me, there are two lights that are kind of framing me, and also the light coming from up that is like creating something. I think it's always more interesting to play a little bit with the lights and frames, and I play a lot with frames in my shots, as you can see here. And I think frames, frame in a way, the subject gives really a lot of importance to the subject. Another very important thing are angles. For example, what I always suggest when I give photography and videography classes online, whatever, is if we are in front of some lines and straight lines like here, like doors and stuff like that, they have to be straight. So it's very important to have on your camera or even on your phone a grid and like seeing that these lines are straight. We don't want to see lines that are oblique or something like that. We want them straight, like here. You see all the lines when they're straight, it gives you an idea of something clean, professional, even if it's shot with a phone. really. It's not really important that you shot with your big camera. You know, keep your line straight. It will look much more cleaner and professional. This is like just an idea of different angles I'm doing. You know, it's not like that I'm always shooting, of course, straight. It could be like eye level. Eye level is like more normal like way of shooting. It can be a little bit lower. I could be higher, like with a top shot. You know, like for example, if again you see a lot of fitness stuff, and I see if I shoot like from down, I give an idea of this person like almost flying. So again, as I say before, I say telling a story. When you decide your shots, they say, oh, why I'm shooting this from down? Because I want to give this an idea of the person flying. If I was shooting with up, yeah, I could see the tattoo, so I was telling a different stories probably, but I was not giving the story of this guy that is almost flying. And I mean, instead here is the opposite. It's a top shot taken with the drone. And again, it's like the, you know, how little we are compared to the immensity of nature and stuff like that. So understanding light is something else that I think is really important. And both if we work with artificial light, like on the left, you know, me, or natural light, you know. And you can see, for example, here in these two pictures, a picture on your left, I think is very boring. Picture on the right is more interesting because it has a little bit of this backlight. It's called also contour light that, you know, isolates the subject a little bit more. And you see the same principle here with the light that is coming a little bit from the side, especially on the left image. The right is totally backlight. And I think this kind of light is really interesting. And then, of course, when we are going outdoor, we deal with natural light. And so, of course, you know, if we start the day from sunrise, we have this very magical and beautiful light. And but then what happened? You know, as the sun comes out, especially in the summer and in warmer places, you know, it gets difficult to shoot something nice, especially if you're shooting with people, you know, in plain sun. So what I suggest always is like finding a shadow. Like here, just a normal like city park, but you know, just the light filtering from the trees gives a totally different effect. And then again, we have the sunset, and again, it becomes more interesting. And then the last point is when you're doing videos, the last point really is editing. And editing is really, really important because what I usually do is like, this is an example of how I do both when I shoot photos or I do videos. I always try to shoot with a very flat profile. And then I recover everything in post-production. So I don't want to make too many decisions when I'm shooting. You know, I just want to have the best, you know, and the flattest profile possible. And then I want to color afterwards. I can understand that maybe this system for someone who's on the rush is not really the most, you know, most practical. But if someone applies it, you know, it can have really good results. And, you know, now, you know, every camera, you know, can shoot like in C-Log. I mean, even the last iPhone 12 can shoot even in RAW. So, I mean, I think it's good to take advantage of these possibilities rather than shooting, even when someone's shooting with a phone and say, okay, I shoot HDR, I put a lot of effects in it. I mean, put your effects afterwards, you know? And then what really, I think, to me, what really makes magic in a video is editing. I just share with you one moment. This is just a promotional video I recently did. And this is like, as you see, it's a mix of different cameras. There's basically, you can guess which ones, but I mean, there's basically a drone. There is a proper video camera, and then there's a GoPro. I just play it 1 second to give an idea. GoPro. So I think that, I think that probably, it's, I could really speak like not like 10 minutes, much more about editing. So we can leave it for another time. But I think that it's something that really can level up your video, but bring your videos to the next level, and I think editing is a lot about planning, because even if you, let's say you shoot yourself, even let's say you shoot yourself like talking to camera, and you're just let's say you just you just have one camera, so you don't have two cameras or whatever. But I mean, do your interview part, whatever your talking head part to the camera, but always shoot B-roll. Always shoot B-roll. Whatever you're talking about, shoot some B-roll, and mix your images of you talking with the camera with something else. Like, even now in this presentation, I showed a lot of photos and videos, just to make it a little bit more interesting, because I think it's boring to just watch someone, the face of someone all the time. I mean, if it's saying something really interesting, maybe it's not, but I mean, most of the cases it is. So I get more bored myself even. So I think B-roll is really important, and also can stress and the importance of certain topics. And so always shoot a lot of B-roll or other stuff, whatever. So film yourself talking to the camera, but then, film like something else, whatever you're talking of, and same, maybe think when you're saying, create a story, it means, a story is not better to be like a big story. It's not that you have to make a movie like in a 7 minutes YouTube video. But I mean, think about something that has a start, have some sort of, growing kind of stuff, a crescendo, and then as an ending, in a way. So think about that. Create some tension, create something that will happen along the way, and always think about, how do I start this? The starting is very important. And, how it finished your video is also very important, So if you think about that, you're already kind of creating a story. And should be all, shoot an introduction and stuff like that, try to make, your videos more interesting. And I think if you make the videos more visually interesting, then maybe it's much probable, but also what you're sharing will get noticed like more. Yeah. And what I'm saying is that if I can give like one final advice as this one, that you don't have to be afraid to be yourself. And so don't, you don't have to mind so much about the rules that I was saying, because I mean, rules are made to be broken. But first learn them. Before you say, okay, I break all the rules, I think it's good to know them, to apply them. And then say, okay, this works for me, this does. This done. Oh, Jamie. Okay. Yeah, good. So I leave me. I was just finished. I'm saying that, this is my YouTube channel. This is my Instagram page. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. We do have a question from Laura Wyatt, who says, if I'm shooting inside with lights, how do I reduce shadows?
If she's shooting, sorry?
If she's shooting inside with lights, how can she reduce shadows? Yeah,
sure. Shadow is a problem. You see, I give you an example. Now I'm using this. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you see. And now it's projecting behind me, and you see I'm projecting a shadow. You see, horrible. Okay, horrible. So, for example, now what have I done? I created this kind of, we're really like, I can't show it now, the light, because it's out of the frame. But this is a very simple is just one light, and it's very simple, but I put it very high. So it's very simple to understand that if the light is coming from a higher position compared to the person, it's not projecting the shadow behind you in the wall. So there are several things you could do. So one thing is, if you have space, because I can understand space is always an issue when you're shooting indoor. But if you can stay a little bit farther from a wall, I see also here, I'm not really like next to the wall. I'm really like, like kind of 1 meter, something like that. 1 meter is enough. But if you can step 1 meter from a wall, it's better. Then second thing, let's say you have two lights. I mean, now I just put one, but let's say you have two lights, like the classic setup that is like two lights at 45 degrees in front of you, and place them a little bit higher. This could be a solution. Another solution, again, if the light is powerful enough, bounce them. So if the ceiling is not too high, again, I have to know airspace, so it's hard to to tell like that. But a solution sometimes is just bouncing the lights. So let's say, again, you place the light quite on the stand quite high, because I mean they have to be a little closer to the ceiling, but then you bounce them on the ceiling. So this creates this thing that the light becomes more, less direct, and so it's less strong. It's not that strong, and it won't produce all these shadows. And then another way, again, is also like to filter the lights in some ways. You could use like these muslin kind of fabrics, or you can use like it depends which light are you using. If you're using an LED panel, it's not always easy like you put this, but you can put some fabric, some muslin fabric usually works. If you're using a strobe, of course you can put a softbox. Of course, a softbox hugely reduce the shadows, but still, if the softbox is pointed towards you and not really from high, and you're really next to the wall, even with the softbox, you will see the shadows. But this is a problem. This is a problem, and sometimes indoor is not a problem so easy to solve it. But you could try with these ways, and I think the easiest is usually bouncing the light. So it will reduce the power of the light, of course, we reduce it a lot, but it's the most efficient way.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, thank you. And another question from Evan asked, Alessandro, would you recommend any online courses for learning how to shoot and edit music videos specifically?
Yeah, shooting music videos. Yes, amazing. So the thing is, yes, it's always recommended. But what I really think is that doing your research is really important. I mean, I know that now it's not easy also to with the pandemic and everything, but I mean, even for example, like trying to learn from someone also directly. There's someone in your area who's doing music videos, maybe needs an assistant, go and assist them. I say, it's you can learn. I mean, if you can learn online, it's fine, but I mean, if you can imagine, if you can just go and assist someone, even just I mean, when you assist, you do very basic things. Probably you change the batteries, or you bring the the tripods and do stuff like that. But you're watching, and if you're smart enough, you're understanding what he's doing, and you can understand all these things and then apply them. And what you can do is also like what I'm saying is that like is I don't know if there's a word for that. It's like reverse shooting, let's say, like watching the works of others and trying to understand how they did. This is like a self-taught thing that everybody can do, just trying to understand, okay, so the light is like that, like now, oh, there's this light, this very dramatic light like that. How he's doing, what he did like with that, the light that is behind this, these blue lights behind it, how we deal with that, and try to understand, it's all, of course you have to start with something simple, but then, you can find how people what people are doing. And that even on YouTube, there's so much good content, you know, and I see, you know, there are people like Peter McKinnon, you know, like these huge, like filmmakers, creators, really, you know, they are sharing so much for free on YouTube. So I don't say don't take courses. It's always good to take courses and find your favorite one. I also teach one-to-one, you know, if it's interest. But what I say is that there's a lot of free resources. You have to be curious. You have to see, oh, okay, what do I really like? And then once you find someone, you know, a style, something you really like, you know, to understand more, you know, to say, oh, I like this guy, you know, I say, oh, I like this music video. And finding out who's the director who filmed this music video. And maybe you will find out this director is a big YouTube channel. Most of the times it's like that nowadays. You start following this director and maybe, you know, he's sharing amazing tips.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, you know, it'd be great to have a course from you, Alessandro, ideally on Classcamp.
Yeah, it would be great. I have to put it together. You know, the thing is that I always divided myself between, you know, sharing what I learned, like working and actually working. And the thing is that when I was planning to do this thing is that when the pandemic started, and but then, you know, luckily, you know, like actual works came in, so I became quite busy again. So it's very hard for me to, you know, to have time to do both. But I definitely want to save more time for that, because I'm really passionate about it. You know, if I can help, you know, someone to achieve their goals, you know, I really, you know, it makes me so happy. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, that really comes through as well. That you're a natural born teacher.
Oh, thank you for that.
thank you so much, Alessandro. It's been a pleasure to listen to you speak. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for inviting me again. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll speak soon. Okay,
ciao.
Thanks. Ciao.
Ciao, Jamie. Ciao.
So next planned was Emily Ward from Shine Talent Management Group. Unfortunately, Emily had to run onto another call. But if you would like to speak to her about personal branding, then she asked me to share her email address, which I will share into the chat in a minute. So if you have any questions on personal branding that I'm sure Emily can answer, then do reach out to her. Shine is one of the largest talent agencies in North America, so she can definitely help you there. Next, I would like to hand over to, so this is the last presentation. This is Jamie and Enzo from Earner. Earner is a bookkeeping platform for creators, specifically for creators. I can see Enzo. Over to you, Enzo.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Let me share my screen. So if Alessandro, if you stop sharing, then I can show my slides. There you go, thank you. All right, so thank you everybody for staying on. As Jamie said, I'm Enzo from Earner. We're the finance and tax app for creators and supplemental income earners. So we automate tax returns while tracking and illustrating your financial progress by connecting directly with your bank account. So if you're based in the UK, you can sign up to our waitlist at earner.co.uk. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes on everyone's favorite topic. So how to build, scale, and manage the finances of your superfan empire. And rather than covering everything, I've picked a few areas that we generally get a lot of questions on. First will be the differences between self-employment and having a limited company, and what reporting is required for a limited company, how to best manage your finances, making sure that you meet all your obligations to the taxman, and how to get help with your personal tax return. So before I start, if there are any specific questions that people have in the audience, just shoot them in the chat and I'll try to cover them during the presentation. So there are two ways that you can manage your creator business: as a self-employed individual or as a limited company. And there are benefits and downsides to both. But typically we recommend operating as self-employed until you hit significant revenue, which is when the benefits of a limited company begin to outweigh the drawbacks. So what I mean with self-employed, so self-employed individuals have different names across the world. I've listed a few of these on the slides. Unfortunately, I'm not multilingual enough to say all of them correctly. But contrary to popular belief, you don't automatically become a sole trader by doing self-employed or creator work. You need to register with your country's tax or business authority to be recognized as self-employed. And on the other side, we have limited companies. And again, they go by many different names internationally. But a limited company is an independent legal entity representing your business. It provides a level of separation between your personal and your business affairs. Now, being self-employed comes with benefits and drawbacks. So you have to deal with less admin as a result of simplified tax and reporting requirements. And it's a lot easier and cheaper to set up. But you are personally liable for your work, which means that any legal challenge against you, it goes directly to you. And there are limited ways to optimize your tax bill. So while the disadvantages sound scary, the potential impact is limited when you're a smaller creator. So unless you've taken out a loan for your business, the likelihood of you having any personal liability is small. But if you are worried, there are professional indemnity insurances that you can take out to limit your personal liability. And you can even take out dedicated influencer or creator insurances to protect you from legal challenges. Now, if you set up a limited company, you'll have personal protection from bankruptcy or any legal disputes, and you'll have a lot more control over your tax bill, but it is a lot more expensive to set up and may require even some starting capital investments. And you'll have a lot more admin, which often means paying more on accountants and even lawyers. So those creators who eventually do set up a limited company do so because of the benefits that come with the legal separation. So ensuring that you're not personally liable for debts or employees. But some creators set up a limited company maybe a little bit too soon, which leads to them being overcharged or overrun with admin. Now, if you have set up a limited company, you'll have responsibilities as a director, and you'll be required to provide a number of reports. Responsibilities differ by country, but the main reports are typically the same, namely a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, and some supporting commentary. So I'm just going to go over a very high level what each of those things are, just so you know what these terms mean when someone asks you about it. So balance sheet is a snapshot of a company's assets and liabilities. So it's a snapshot that is taken at a specific date in time. So for creators like yourself, assets are like tools you've bought, cash you've earned, any intangible assets associated with your work. So let's say your brand or money that you're owed. When you're a creator, liabilities and equity are things like loans you've taken out, salaries that you're supposed to be paying yourself, tax that you owe, or any shares that you own in your business. The second document is a profit and loss statement, and that represents the income and expenses over a specific period of time. So it also covers the profits that you've made over that time period. And this is mainly done annually. So for creators, again, income represents the content and courses you sell, but it can also include things like the sales of merchandise, which I think we've already covered in this masterclass by diverting different income streams. And expenses can include like fees, such as the ones that you have to pay for using Classcamp, internet costs, or other subscriptions, as well as equipment you've purchased, or even depreciation of some of the assets that you earn. Now, some countries may ask you to submit additional documents too, which can make managing a limited company quite a hassle. And therefore, most limited companies work with an accountant to prepare all these documents. In the rest of the presentation, I'll cover what you can do if you're self-employed or what you can do if you set up a limited company. And the level of complexity between each setup will become a lot clearer as well when we go through the following content. So how do you pay yourself as a creator? If you're self-employed, there's no separation between you and your business, which means that any profit you make can be taken out of the business immediately. You can immediately use your income for personal use. But it is important to save a certain percentage of your income to pay your tax obligation when it comes due. But we get into that a little bit later. In a limited company, any revenue or profits belong to the business you set up. So you can employ yourself and pay yourself a salary, but you can also pay yourself through dividends. So as an example, when Classcamp pays you, you need to make sure this goes into a dedicated bank account for your business rather than to your personal accounts. But regardless of approach, we suggest setting yourself a monthly salary or allowance. This way, you can mimic being employed and not take too much or even too little money out of your business unintentionally. You need to make sure you keep money aside to either invest back into your business or for your taxes. So how should you set money aside for your tax? So the best way to prepare your annual tax bill if you're self-employed is to set a certain percentage of your income aside throughout the year. Even better if you can set this money into interest-bearing accounts, so you actually earn a little bit as you have this money set aside. You can't be certain what your total tax will be until the end of the year often. So it's better to be conservative and set too much away rather than too little. For a limited company, you'll also need to set money aside for your annual tax bill, despite it being a little bit more complex to plan how much you'll need to pay. But you have a little bit more flexibility to adjust your tax bill by paying yourself a salary. A great way to set money aside is to use a digital bank that allows you to create pots. Putting money in these pots creates the mental separation and reducing the risk, again, that these tax funds are spent elsewhere. So what about managing payments specifically for Classcamp? So Classcamp doesn't pay out creators until the first business day of the month. So to ensure you don't use all the cash in one go, we suggest a cash flow plan where you can track your inflows and outflows throughout the month or year. Again, this will help you plan for delays in getting paid out, as well as ensure you never go into your overdraft or have to take out a loan. So what about tax? Every country has slightly different tax system. So I'm not really going to go into any local rules or requirements, but instead I'm just going to cover some of the common attributes that you need to consider when dealing with tax. First off are thresholds. So not everybody has to pay tax all the time. If you're self-employed, there are different thresholds at which you need to submit a tax return. This is often based on your income, not your profits. So example, in the UK, if you earn more than £1,000 a year, you need to complete a tax return. But in France, you need to submit as soon as you're earning any income. And if you're a limited company, you may need to submit 2 tax returns, depending on how you pay yourself. You need to do one for your business, which you set up, which includes some of the documents I've already gone through, like a profit and loss statement, and an income tax return for yourself. So what are different tax that you need to consider? So again, there are distinct differences in tax across the world, but the main ones are income tax, sales tax, aka VAT, and corporation tax. So this is tax you pay on your business profits. Income tax is split up in 2 parts most of the time. One of them is Social Security contributions, and the other one is just your main income tax. Social Security contributions, depending on the country, can be calculated as a monthly cost. So you kind of say £3 every month or $3 every month, or as a percentage of your income. And again, this depends on the country. And income tax is commonly calculated in bands. So you start out with a certain tax-free allowance most of the time where you don't have to pay tax. And as soon as you earn over that amount, you get into a tranche where you have to, everything you earn will be taxed at a specific rate. As your earnings move up, you get into different tax bands, and your incremental earnings get taxed at the higher rates. So again, in the UK, as an example, anything you earn over £150,000 is taxed at 45%, but your earnings before £150,000 is taxed at different rates. So VAT is a tax charge on the services and goods you sell. If you use something like Classcamp, this is managed by them, but it's still important for you to understand what it means. So generally, you don't really need to worry about VAT until you've hit a specific threshold in sales. So in the UK, this is again £85,000 a year. And if you expect to hit that, you need to register. But if you don't, then you don't really need to worry about it. If you are VAT registered, you need to submit a VAT return. Depending on the country, this can be monthly, quarterly, or annually. But if you are VAT registered, you can start claiming back the VAT that you've been charged on your business. This can be related to services you use, so subscriptions or professional fees, or goods you buy. So let's say you have to buy a camera, you can claim back the VAT. So the last tax is corporation tax. Again, this differs across Europe and the world, whether that applies to you. So in the UK, you only need to pay corporation tax when you set up a limited company. But for example, in Germany, even if you're self-employed, you need to pay something called trade tax. So this difference is typically calculated as a percentage of the profit generated by the business. And again, it's billed periodically. So what to do if you don't want to do your income tax? Hopefully I haven't made you too afraid of everything so far, but there's been a lot of innovation in the finance and tax industry in the last few years. So rather than going to an old school accountant, which is probably going to cost you a lot of money, you can now use many of the technology companies that can help you with your income tax for a much better price. So in the UK, you can use Earner. We help you manage your finances and tax submission for £100, which is several times cheaper than an accountant. And across the world, there are many companies that can help. And we've listed a couple just on the slide here. But the last things to consider is you can expense more than you think. So make sure you expense everything you purchase for your business, even let's say using your internet or your electricity at home. Having a separate bank account for your business is very useful to keep accounts separate, even just mentally, but it may take a lot of time to set up. We at Earner always focus on cash-based accounting, which is a lot simpler and effective way to stay on top of your finances, but country by country, they may differ. So you may be required to use accrual-based accounting, which is a little bit more complicated, but not a topic for today. So before I leave you, I wanted to summarize some things we've covered today. We hope you now understand the difference between managing your creator business as self-employed or as a limited company, understand the different types of tax you will likely have to deal with as part of running your creator business, and understand the additional responsibilities that come with running a limited company. So thank you very much for listening. Again, if you're running your creator business from the UK, make sure you give us a shout at earner.co.uk.
Awesome. Thank you, Enzo. That was really good. We do have a question. We have a question from an anonymous attendee who says, do you have any thoughts about how to deal with VAT, in particular, when getting money from clients in the EU?
So again, this really depends on how much money you're charging and depends how you're getting this money. So if you're using a tool like Classcamp, it's very easy because they kind of manage all the VAT charges for you. If you're doing this directly with the customer, you need to charge them VAT most likely if you've hit above a specific threshold. But again, this is really country specific.
Okay. Okay, good. Thanks. That's great. Does the audience have any more questions for Enzo while we've got him on the line? If so, then please post them in the chat or on the Q&A. No, I think that's it. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Enzo. Cheers. So I think it's probably time for us to wrap up here. Thanks everyone for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've learned a little bit. I know that I have. Before we all go, I'd like to quickly hand over to my colleague Tirell, who would like to just tell you one more time about Classcamp. Thanks.
The last plug before we wrap up, but yeah, I definitely took away that it's really important to build community in the creator economy. It's hard to figure out what the right income streams are, and it's really important to do what you're passionate about. So if you're interested about teaching, if you have something that you want to educate your fans on, cohort-based program is the best way to do that, and you can get to the front of the line. So go to classcamp.com, put your name down, and we'll get in touch. Thanks so much, and hope you all have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm really glad that you came out.